It's the screenshot. It's perfect. Hello, everybody. I actually am talking to Mudrabbit tonight because we talked on the last little stream that I was doing, and she had some stuff she's been wanting to get off her chest. She wanted to get it off on a couple other shows, but there's been some technical difficulties going on with them. So first, we'll do our regular casualties because we've been talking offline for a little while, but just so everybody else can kind of catch up. How you been?
I'm good. Hey guys. I can't see the chat, so I don't know who else in.
So I don't know if you can on StreamYard, you should be able to click the comment section. We got 3 people watching, I believe, right now. I can pull up the chats as they come in, but so far,
I'm on my phone. It doesn't give me that option.
okay. Well, I'll pull them up as they come in, and I said in the description, if anybody's got questions for Mudrabbit, I assume she'd be pretty open to answering them as long as they're appropriate. But Chase was saying she was happy that she got the notification this time. Tiffany was happy to see that
hey, Tiffany.
You were coming on. Wonkaroo saying hi.
Hey, Wonkaroo. Hey, Chase.
Yeah.
I have an urge to just scream out, Chase!
Right. I always see it come across. Well, when I was eating the chip earlier and Chase popped in, when she said, I think she said something like she was watching it 2 times fast so she could catch up. And basically, you guys started talking, and I was thinking I didn't want to think about the chip anymore, so I was about to read your guys', oh, it's Chase. Oh, it's Mudrabbit. Hello, hello. And I was, because I really didn't want to think about what I was doing earlier.
Are we an adequate distraction?
Oh, definitely. Well, anything would have been a bit distraction. I feel like that 12 minutes was rough. Like I think it was like 10 or 12 minutes of it was really rough.
Your face got so dark.
Oh my God. I watched it back. I was like, oh my God, I looked miserable for like 10 to 12 minutes. And then after that, it started to go away and I wasn't so bad anymore. But
I'm sorry, but I couldn't help myself when I saw that you were okay. I was laughing so hard I had tears coming out my eyes.
Oh, I don't blame you. I had tears coming out too. It was a group cry.
Yeah, it was different.
Oh man, and I was trying so hard not to touch my face. I don't know. I don't know. I might have a better tolerance for hot food than I thought I did. Because I went back and as soon as I realized they're going to actually upload my video on that website.
Oh my God! So, I hope they don't put our comments in there.
Oh, I think those will be on there too. Yeah, that should be good.
Oh my God, that'll be hysterical.
Yeah, I'm thinking I got to do another spicy challenge now. And Chase suggested the nut challenge.
The nut.
But that's like a bag of like 15 to 20 nuts. Like it's not just like eating one chip really quick. So I'd almost have to dump the whole bag into my mouth.
Oh my God, that'd be overkill.
Yeah. And it sounds hotter than the other one. I don't know. Because I don't know how hot the one that I did was. So I'm trying to rethink.
Hot enough to change the color of your face.
Oh yeah. And changed my tongue. It changed my tongue blue. I wasn't a happy camper for a little while.
Oh Lord.
It was shocking to say the least. But then again, I don't eat spicy food. Like I feel like I have had ghost pepper like chili that was hotter than that. But I don't know if they just put all the seeds in it or how that works. So
I pick the chilies out of my General Tso's chicken. I don't want them.
Yeah, I don't know. And I told somebody, I think it was Eric, popped in right after I finished it, and he was like, "Well, I watched the 4 burger challenge. I got to do he wanted to do a hot ones challenge, and so I think me and him are going to do an interview. I don't know if you've ever seen Hot Ones on YouTube, but there's this guy named Sean Evans who interviews people while they're eating spicy wings, and they gradually get hotter, and they have a set of sauces that you can buy." and you just season your wings with them, and you kind of set them in that order. And Sean Evans will ask the guest questions right after they eat a wing,
Oh
and
my
just try to
gosh.
get them to talk and have a conversation. It's one of my favorite styles of interview I've ever seen.
I have trouble watching mukbangs. I want to throw up when I see this going on.
Oh yeah, well, I really like the eating competition ones.
I can't. I can't. I don't eat large amounts of food. My dad is always telling me, eat more, eat more. I was like, I can't. I'm a grazer. I don't do the 3 meals. I eat little bits throughout the day. That's what my stomach can handle. And I see these people put away these huge plates of food, and I lose my appetite.
I I wonder how they do it. There's a guy that I watch on there where it's like he'll finish his competitions a half hour before the time given,
Oh,
and I'm just like, oh my god, what is like? How does this person do this? Like, so what I started to realize when I did the 4 burgers or whatever the other day, I was like, oh, this is all about swallowing quickly, like
yeah.
chewing it up where it's comfortable to swallow, like where you're not choking or anything.
Yeah.
And
And you have to be
also,
careful because it can lodge. Oh Lord.
well,
We
and
used
that's also why I pick things like a cheeseburger or something like that, where I'm not really worried about it lodging. I could grab a drink and still swallow. Like
You
it's
do
not.
realize if it's chewed, you can get more into your stomach. People think that if they take big bites and swallow that they're going to get a lot into their stomach, but they fill up real fast. So if you chew it
Well,
and
no,
masticate it
it's
down to
actually the
nothing.
more. It's actually the opposite. The more you chew it up, the more it expands in your stomach, depending on what you're eating. If
Well,
it's
you have a lot of
oily,
bread there too.
yeah, that's the other thing I worry about.
Yeah.
Like a dog eats. What's up, bug bouncer? We were catching up a little bit. I was talking about I just did the 1 chip challenge like an hour or two ago, and yeah, it was a little intense. Mudrabbit was there to watch it. They're gonna upload it on the Pocky chip 1 chip challenge website,
Oh
and
no.
yeah, so it should be funny because I think everybody else just kind of records them, like just them and their friends doing it. They don't actually do it on a live stream. And most of the videos I was looking at was just like somebody's phone recording the whole thing. There wasn't like live comments coming in, so that should be funny. It should be entertaining. Or maybe they'll just take the Twitter video. I don't know which one they'll take. They might just take it from Twitter or Twitch. Your dog loves hot food. Oh my god, that's wild. I've never had a dog that likes spicy food.
You're not supposed to feed your dog spicy food.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
It's not good for them.
But now that we got a couple people in here, so I wanted to get to what you wanted to explain to people with like the best of your knowledge of what the difference is between dimensions and densities and parallel realities. Like if you can kind of explain people your best idea of how these are different and how they vary.
Okay. The confusion I'm seeing with these gurus on YouTube are that they keep talking about densities the same way they talk about dimensions. And densities, we are are not dimensions, densities. We are third density creatures. We cannot exist on second. We can't exist on third. On fourth. We're third density creatures. So when they're talking about going to different densities, we wouldn't be able to exist there because we're not built for it. Dimensions. If you think of densities, think of a pole with 7 CDs on it, separated. We're on the third one from the bottom. We're third density creatures. Animals, second density, plants, rocks, things like that are first density, and we all exist within third densities. Fourth density is where we go to the split. I guess people would consider that heaven and hell, because depending on where you vibrate, you go either way, but then you're doing it in a fourth density body. Dimensions for us here on the third density plane span across that CD that represents third density.
So
All those little bits of data that are on a CD, on that third density CD, are different dimensions of
would
the
you
same
say
plane.
that densities and dimensions can't really go lower with the entities that we are?
If you're
Um,
going lower or higher, then you're going into elementals and fourth density beings that can see us, but we can't see them as easily.
because I
See,
feel
we
like
don't,
it would be hard for without having density in the equation. It would also be hard to go to a lower dimension and be portrayed as yourself. Like I don't think there could be a two-dimensional vision of yourself where it would actually be functional.
well, I'm not sure how that would work in a 3D realm. I mean, we are third density. Everything we see, everything we do, our whole existence between densities 1 and 3 exist on the third density realm. We don't know how well a plant or a rock or an insect perceives us.
Yeah.
So we don't know how well we can perceive somebody that's on fourth density or sixth for that matter. First density is plants and rocks. Second density would be animals and insects. Third density is human. Fourth density is the heaven hell dichotomy, where if you're vibrating as service to others, that's the way you go when you ascend. If you're service to self, then you go the other way. This is that split I've talked about before. But we all have a straight line to fifth density from any density that we're existing on, because when we die, that's where we go. That's where
Do
we
you
go to.
think do you think vibrationally somebody can use a tool or something to change the density of something else in order
No,
to move it? Like
no, because
I always wondered
any
about that with like
tool,
large structures because a lot of people claim that they could move large structures um, with with like objects or something like that. If there's any kind of tool that would make it something that you could pass through another density or anything like that, like if the vibration was strictly what it was, could you match the vibration in order to achieve, you know,
I
passing
don't
through a
know.
density or
I can equate it to what happens to the human body. I mean, if you were to go to sleep in third density and suddenly wake up in fourth density, you'd be androgynous. You see what I'm saying? Because there's no bifurcation there.
yeah.
So I don't know that any tool used in third density could come from another density and still work properly, because any tool that's built here is built on third density materials.
Well, so then you could be able to pass something that was like a one density through a second density, maybe because you have
No,
third
that's what
density.
happens through reincarnation.
Okay,
That's how you move up. Everybody starts at the bottom and works their way up. And
I
it's
didn't know
like,
if like through vibration you could change, like if a rock could pass through, like say a wall or something like that, like
well, the
moving
rock's not
actual
even aware of the wall. So that's the
but
whole point of first
if it's
density. The rock's not
vibration,
even aware.
but if it's vibration based, is it more about a rhythm or a pattern, or does it have to be? Is it thought of in a different way?
Um, I think it has much to do with character and integrity of an individual.
Okay.
And the way I define that is the age old way. It's what you do when people aren't looking. That's where you vibrate. That's your vibratory rate right there. That's where you fit. And there are people out there who have no integrity and absolutely no character, and quite frankly, nobody wants to have anything to do with them because of that.
Well, yeah, and that's so density describes like what you can almost tell the difference in density if somebody's fake or not.
Well,
Like, they can be
density is the
nice in
plane we
public.
live on. Everything here is third density. Density is the plane we live on. People vibrate at different rates, and people are at different rates of reincarnation. It's like some people are in high school, some people are still in kindergarten. Some people are in college.
You're just talking about measurements of education to distinguish the difference, though, right?
No, I'm equating it to Schoolhouse Earth. Some people have been here a long time.
Sorry, I think Mudrabbit might have cut out for a minute. She might pop back in.
Helpless. You need to help them through their entire life. Some people just need help all the time because they just don't know what to do. They have no inherent ability.
We missed a little bit of that. That's the first time you've cut out in 15 minutes, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. Sometimes some people have not incarnated as many times on third density, and some people have incarnated many times on third density.
Okay.
But we're all, and whatever this is that's
so
coming
what density
through with this. I'm sorry?
What density did you say? What density did you say that you thought was what would be considered ascension or like a heavenly density
Heaven or
as we
hell?
described it on Earth?
Well, assuming that those of us on third density are prepared to ascend after one of our deaths here, depending on how we performed here determines which one we end up on there. Now, service to others, I mean, we're all here on third density service to self. We're service to self by default because we consume. You don't consume on fourth density, or at least not on fourth density STO, service to others. So if you're geared in that direction, that's where you find yourself. But people who are geared towards service to self and taking advantage to others will find themselves in a less pleasant realm in that density. Fourth density is where it splits. That's what I was showing you on the, the Hebrew Gematria Sephiroth?
Yeah.
You see first, second, and third density at the bottom, but when you see fourth density, it splits, but then this one in the middle goes straight to fifth. There's a line from each density straight to fifth. So every time you die in any density, you go straight to the Akashic record on fifth density.
So is the split, is one side trying to get you to a higher density and one side is trying to keep you where you're at, or how is that working?
More or less. We can see it in our politicians trying to keep us stagnant and try to keep us where we're at without any progression. I mean, we should have been so far ahead of where we are now with technology, and we're not because we're being held back. They put poison in our food, they spray poison in our air. So yeah, we're being tested. They're holding people back, and people who fall into that become service to self generated. Hold on. Zuli.
Oh,
Zuli. Hold on 1 second. We got a
you're
Yorkie. Zuli.
I'm going to catch up the chat when my rabbit has a second here.
Hush.
So thank you, everybody, for stopping in. We got CM.
She's a good guard dog, but she's tiny.
Good guard dog. Well, at least she lets you know when people are around.
She's going, I'm outside because the connection's better. And she sees me. Zuli! Stop it. She had to put her 2 cents worth in.
I want to say thanks to Tiffany, Wankaroo, Chase, Bug Bouncer, Zachary Kim, CM.
Hi guys. Hi Zachary.
Terry's in the house, and with that, I will catch up the chat a little bit. Chase was saying, as when someone is described as an old soul. I assume that was a question for Mudrabbit. And then Terry also said, time devours everything, therefore consuming must occur on fourth density.
No, you don't consume on fourth density. There's no need to. You have an ethereal body there. At least on fourth density service to others, STO. I'm not sure that's the same on SDS.
Well, so
But
are
I
the
think this
corrupt.
is where they equate what?
I was going to say, so are the corrupt entities and the positive entities consuming when they're trying to keep people or ascend them? You know what I'm saying? Where
Okay,
that what is?
yeah. Let's put it this way. Sixth density is above fifth density. That's where you would have the things I guess people would equate to angels. These are service to others individuals. Anything that's going to communicate with you outside of third density, if it's service to others, it's more than likely coming from that level. But you also have interference from fourth density STO and second density elementals. And sadly, for most people who challenge, if they don't know how to do it right, or they don't know how to communicate right and, so to speak, test the spirits, then chances are you're going to get one of these negative entities, and it's going to take a little bit of truth and wrap it in a bunch of lies. And this is what I see happening with people on YouTube who go around mixing densities with dimensions.
I'm not going to
Because
lie.
the two are very different. You have
I
many dimensions within a density, but you don't have many densities within a dimension. It doesn't
Well,
work the other way.
you've actually talked to me about it before because I have
Yeah.
trouble with it sometimes because I do, and I also get them mixed up with parallel realities that are closer to our own, or parallel timelines that are closer to our own,
Mhm.
that are similar and might have slight differences, but also people get them confused with parallel dimensions, or yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think there's all kinds of dimensions. There's parallel dimensions, there's non-parallel dimensions, there's
But
dimensions
I
that are
think
so different from ours,
but don't
but
all
they're all,
dimensions all don't all dimensions have to be parallel at some point, and they all veer?
well, they all have
I
to
would
be in
think of it
third
like a tree.
density if they're going to be third.
They all have to start at
I'm
some
sorry?
timeline. I was going to say I think of it like a tree. They all
Right,
have to start on some timeline, but they all branch off.
right, within the same density.
Yes.
Yeah, every time you go to a new density, 1 through 4, you start over. Oh, I didn't finish that tree either. You have first, second, third, where we're at, fourth, where we bifurcate. Fifth is where everybody goes when they die to reflect and then go right back to where they were or ascend. Six are the corporeals. They have no body. It's just intelligence. And seventh is the Godhead.
And that's what Chase was just asking. So she said there's 7 densities, yes, question mark. So it sounds like I don't know, is it something that a human can achieve? Is the 7th density, or we consider humans?
What?
Sorry, I was answering Chase's question. She said, "So there's 7 densities, yes?" Question mark. And I
Yes.
was wondering if do you know if humans? But because I know we wouldn't be described as humans, what our entity actually is. But would people that are in these meat suits eventually be able to become 7th density, or is that
We're
not
all working our way back. We're all working our way back to the Godhead. We all started in first density as a rock and a plant. And when
okay?
we incarnated there as often as we needed to learn whatever lessons were necessary, we came back as an animal. And we did that over and over. But this is where the archetypes rule. And you don't have an individuated soul in those two levels. You've got an archetype. So, like for instance, when a cat dies, it doesn't stay individual, it goes back into a soul pool. It's when they no longer fit into the soul pool that they become individuated, and then they're able to graduate to third density as humans, because now we have an individual soul. We don't belong to a soul pool. There's no archetype ruling over us. We look for the Godhead. Now the challenge is to learn as much as we possibly can on this level so that when the split comes and when the bifurcation happens to all of us, I don't know if it's going to happen individually or collectively, nobody knows. But when it does happen, where you've chosen to resonate, whether it be service to others or service to self, is where you'll find yourself in fourth density. You can't change that. You have to change yourself now while you're here in third density and learn those lessons of empathy, compassion, helping other people, not being selfish, not being snide, not being mean to other people. Don't be a bully. All those things that give you the attributes of service to others, because we live in a service to self realm. So that's the challenge, is to overcome this. And if we can overcome this, we will find ourselves on the right side of it when that time comes. But in the interim, every time a life ends on any density, you go back to fifth. There's a straight line to fifth with no interference.
So I got a question. One regarding what it takes to become this higher density when it comes to being compassionate for others. Like, say somebody, like, because you were using the reference of not being a bully, and what about those people that challenge themselves in life more when they have their backs against the wall? Like, maybe it's the only way that they would challenge themselves a little bit
Well,
more. Or, like,
we wrote
slow
these
down.
lessons. We
Go
have
ahead.
in our Akashic record, when we come into this life, we have it, the lessons. In other words, it's like a list. We come into, like, say we're coming into third grade, and we've got a list in our hand from the first teacher in homeroom that tells us these are all your different classes and all the things you got to learn. And then you have to figure it out from there.
Okay.
That's how we come here. And not all of us here are on the same level. Some of us have had more incarnations here than others.
But for like people dealing with others, because you would know I mean, you would have an idea of your own Akashic record, maybe not prior lives, like we were talking about offline a little bit, but at least your own. But when it comes to dealing with others, like I do feel like there are some people in the world that need tough love, and then I feel like there's a lot of people that need more hugs in life, because that's actually what's going to make them a little bit more whole.
Oh,
Because I do think
absolutely.
there's
And
a balance in there.
those are the senses we need to hone.
Okay.
Those are exactly the lessons we're here to learn. We're here to learn about our families. We're here to learn about love. We're not here to learn about the stock market. We're not here to learn about finance. We're here to learn about how to help others, how to take care of our families, how to take care of our gardens, how to be happy in our life. If we can learn to be happy, that's half the battle.
And then also my subtle question I wanted to ask the other question first, because otherwise I would have got distracted. Where do insects fall on density?
Second,
Second? Okay.
yeah.
Because I assumed like fish and water life kind of fell in with animals. I
Yeah, they
just didn't
do,
know.
because they're on different levels themselves, and no telling how many archetypes they've got to go through to get off that level and make it up to third.
Do you think something like a dolphin that has like very good communication skills and
Okay,
that's considered intelligent? Do you
there
think
has been
to the
reference.
higher density? Do you think
Yeah,
they're considered higher
there's
density, or do you think that they could be higher than they're put on the chart by their species?
no, they're higher. There's a book, and I wish I could remember the name of it. I read it about 20 years ago. The guy is he does research into animals and their health and things like that. He's not a veterinarian, but he's a biologist.
Okay,
And he explained that what he had learned is that all cetaceans, which whales, dolphins, any mammal that swims in the ocean that has fins, not seals, not walruses, but cetaceans. That would be killer whales. That would be gray whales. That would be dolphins.
sharks.
That would be porpoises. No, not sharks. They're not
No.
mammals. All cetaceans, horses, and elephants have a higher intelligence. There's something about them, especially cetaceans and horses, that you can communicate with them if you knew how, and they would communicate back. So they're more aware of us humans and what we're feeling and thinking than any other animals are. And I wish I could remember the name of this book because I read it twice. You'd think I'd remember the title.
Because I feel like there's certain animals that are just on another level than us. I also
Yeah,
get that about cats for some
he
reason.
documented it. He said it was cetaceans, horses, and elephants.
Oh, okay.
So
And
that
elephants.
was really,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I always thought that was interesting about elephants, and when they said they like never like there's a common trait. Like I know it's been depicted in Disney movies and stuff like that. But that elephants have a good memory.
yeah. They never forget. Neither do horses, and neither do cetaceans.
Hmm.
They're very intelligent.
what about like crustaceans in their hierarchy systems?
I think they're down there with the animals
Okay.
because I have a hermit crab as a pet, and she acts like
But
they're like a
I
pet.
think of like lobsters because they're similar to ants when it comes to like
Mhm.
a hierarchy system when they actually have like a hive mind almost.
Well, they belong to a different archetype. It's a
Okay.
different soul pool. So for whatever lesson they learned in first density, that's where they ended up. It all
Yeah.
leads to third. We all come out as human eventually, but you never go down. I mean, there's a belief in the Far East that you can incarnate as a dog. No, you don't go down, you go up.
You can't be punished for the way that you operate in a
You
certain.
get your punishment. Your karma's real. You get your karma instantly. Your karma happens in this lifetime. You don't pay for past life regressions because you don't remember them.
Well, no, I just didn't know if it happened during the transition. Like, oh, okay, you're in this place in life now, or maybe it's the same density. Maybe they will repeat you as a fourth density. No, you said third density is human, right?
Well, I've been the only incarnations I remember on regressions. I've had 3 regressions were all third density human. So I think that's the only thing that my brain will recollect, or maybe that's the only record I have access to.
Yeah. Well, that
It's
makes me
not
wonder
necessary.
if that was a
It's
repeat, but that itself would be a repeat, right? At least it wouldn't be going to a lower density, but it would be at least be a repeat of the same density until you learned the right.
Well, you know what's really interesting? I have a very good friend who's been friends for many, many years, like 38 years, and she's always had a fear of water,
Okay.
always afraid of drowning. You can't get her in a pool. She'll go to the beach. She won't go near the water. Just can't get her near it. And we threw her in a regression session, and it turned out that she drowned on a ship. Ship went down somewhere in the 1800s, and all her skirts and all her clothing pulled her under. And she was panicking as she was remembering this regression. We had to take her hands and calm her down and bring her forward, just so that she wouldn't hyperventilate because she was getting a little scared. And it turned out her fear of water in this lifetime was because she drowned in the last one or a previous one.
That's interesting. Well, and I had this
Mine is hang.
commonality.
Mine
What
is
were you saying?
hanging. Mine is suffocation. My previous life, right before this one, I was hung.
You know where?
Yeah, Mississippi. I was a black man. They pulled me off my front porch with my wife and my 2-year-old son watching. Pulled me across the Ku Klux Klan. Pulled me across my yard and hung me right there in my yard from a tree.
Interesting. So I have a fear of suffocation, but I don't have a fear of water. I have a strange interest in water, and
Yeah,
I
I like
talked to
water.
somebody that does past life regressions, and they so a lot of people didn't get accurate readings from this person. I'm not going to say their name because a lot of people didn't get accurate readings, but I thought it was interesting that they described me as somebody that went through that was around during Salem and then also was around as a pirate. And I was like,
Interesting.
well, I would have to have been a successful pirate for me to still have a love for water. And then it would make, I don't know why, but I think suffocation is with all humans. There's something about suffocation. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just me or if it's other humans, but the skinned alive idea, something about that
No,
just drives me like up the wall.
No, that doesn't bother me. The hanging does. Whenever I see a movie where they're hanging somebody like the cowboy movies, I get this constriction in my neck. And I never knew why until I got that regression. And it was very interesting because that was the life where I came into this one, and I have memories of being in the womb.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Very few people have that, and it's very
yeah.
people with a lot
It
of
was weird. It was
intuition.
comfortable, but it was weird.
Well, people that actually describe those are really high in intuition when it comes to their current life, and there's very few people that I know that actually talk about they know their life prior to being born, but
Yeah, I
also still in
remember
the
it.
womb.
I remember being in the womb. I remember hearing my mother's voice. I remember her singing. I remember seeing the light. I mean, the light was weird. It was like diffused light. If it was daytime and she was outside, it was like the walls of this thing I was in were glowed this golden orange. It was really cool.
Yeah. Do you associate light with certain energies, or do you think there's any draw to light when it comes to densities? Because I always wonder if higher densities travel by light, or
I think, and don't take my word on this, I think the sixth density entities travel on light. They
okay,
are light. They're light, they're energy. They are light. I mean, there's no better way to describe them.
yeah.
But we don't
And
get to see them.
do you think it's possible? So this is a theory that I got from a TV series that I used to watch that had to do with higher densities and people reaching a higher plane of existence. Do you think you could get penalized in a higher plane of existence for helping people achieve that lower than like a fourth density? Like if you were to find a way to contact somebody or help somebody on a third density.
Oh, this
um,
is what the sixth density beings are for. When I was with Laura, and I spent a lot of years studying, a lot of the material we would get would be channeled, but they told us up front. They taught us how to test the spirits, because you don't want to be talking to spirits. You don't want to be talking to spirits. You don't want to be talking to dead dudes. You want to be talking to these guys.
did they say
They,
why?
yeah, because they're up there on sixth density. They see all, they know all. They're the next thing to God. Spirits have an ulterior motive, and dead dudes don't know any more than a live dude.
No, I can confirm that with
So
the people that I've talked to that have passed on, and I almost feel like they sometimes do know more enough to trick you if they wanted to, and you
yeah,
wouldn't know the
exactly.
difference.
Exactly. So you have to be very careful with things like Ouija boards. I wouldn't have one in my house. My mother was a channeler, so I learned how to do it properly. And for many years, I did automatic writing.
Okay.
But the entities, you have to find out. You have to test them, and they'll caution you to do so. And you have to have a name. You can't just have some guy come in that says, "I used to be Genghis Khan." That's bullshit. You don't want spirits. You don't want dead dudes. You
It
want
makes
these higher entities that have never been in the body. You want these entities that are up there right next to God. And they
one.
are available. But
In
you
what we
have
would
to
be able to access is like dead dudes or people that have passed away.
no,
Wouldn't
you
that
can you
be?
can access the upper entities. This is what
Oh, no,
Laura
no, no.
used
I'm
to
not
do.
saying. I'm not saying you can't. What I'm saying is, aren't those people that are like off their journey when it comes to like going either to their, to repeat their density, or like they're almost like wandering
Yeah,
entities. Like
exactly.
they have
If
no
you're
purpose to
talking
perform.
if you're talking to a dead dude, he hasn't gone to fifth density to work on his lessons.
Or
He's
to
still
repeat.
hanging out here through attachments. He's probably got a spirit attachment to a loved one because he doesn't want to leave. That's the problem with dead dudes. You're not supposed to hang around. You're supposed to go straight to fifth and take care of business. If it's an entity like a spirit, these are the bad guys from fourth density service to self. They're the ones that are trying to get as many of us to come there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They influence our politicians. They come through places like these Stargates and CERN and things, and they influence our politicians, and they make people rich because they do what they want them to do to control the populaces here. So these are also bad dudes. You don't want them. But what you can do is you can access purely by asking, and you do have to ask God's protection because they're up there with him. And if you're not calling on him, they're not listening. And they will come through, and they come through the locutors of Pleiades and Cassiopeia. And they tell you this, they will identify. And I think now they're only coming through Cassiopeia. It moves, and for a while it was Pleiades, and then it was Pleiades and Cassiopeia, and then it's Cassiopeia now. I don't think it's moving for a while into any other constellation, but that's where this light information is coming from. And you can access these entities. But I would strongly suggest that anybody who do this, go read Cassiopeia.com and read about Laura and read how she does this and read the cautionary tales and learn. She'll teach you. My mother taught me, but you can't just sit down to an Ouija board and start willy-nilly doing this stuff. You're opening yourself up to some nasty attachments.
Oh yeah. No, I 100% agree. I've tried to talk to people about this, and my biggest thing is, if you tell anybody you're playing with a Ouija board, you're not thinking about it the right way.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not a game. This shouldn't be sold by Hasbro, because you can have some things that you bring home with you that you are not ready to bring in your home. But I have to take a quick 2 minutes. I have to go to the bathroom real quick. But Zachary,
I'll keep them entertained.
Oh yeah, you're more than welcome to. I was just because I'll probably want to catch up to this later. Zachary Kim, I did talk to Michael McIntosh today. We were going to do an interview tonight, but it was like midnight his time, and we decided not to. I told him to get some rest, but he said the same thing to me. He doesn't know if he doesn't think he would be president in 2024. Yeah, that is a reoccurring thing that I've actually heard from Michael quite recently. And then Chase said Mudrabbit 100. She was saying that you're on point with everything you're saying.
Oh, good. I mean, I'm not perfect, and I probably make mistakes. I'm just explaining it the way I learned it. And this woman is phenomenal. Laura Knight Jadzik, she is phenomenal. And I actually traveled to France to meet with this group of people. I think there was like almost 100 of us there. And we stayed in Mozac, France. And she had rented an old monastery, small monastery somewhere for her family. And her husband is a physicist. So when she finds something that she can dig on, for instance, she'll get a little bit of channeled information and she'll start asking questions, and they'll tell her, we're not giving you the answers. You got to find them. So she would go and find them. She'd bounce them off her husband, and we would get all kinds of information. She had, at that time, I think 400 of us in the group, where we could just go online and start digging back when you could find these things. And some of the stuff that we would come up with. So she would take it all and go back and have another session and question them, and they would direct us where we were online to keep digging in this direction or ignore that direction because it's fruitless. So they guided us. They guided us through this whole thing, and they did it with purpose, and they would not hand us the answers with a silver spoon. They made us look for them. So when this whole Q thing came online back in 2017, I was all about it. It's like, well, geez, this is what I've been doing for years. But it's true. The information's there if you look for it, and you can get help from these entities if you know how to ask.
So, do you think there's other entities on our plane of existence that that could be lower density or higher density than us that are trying to convert us? Like you were talking about systems where you think higher densities were. Do you think?
Okay,
say,
this is
do you think
the way the Cassiopeians explain that to us is that it takes a great deal of their energy to step down and be physically on this plane. It's exhausting to them. So they have clones, they have little robots that look like these grays. They get politicians to do their bidding. They get people in Hollywood to do their bidding. It's
This is
exhausting
why
for.
I think I had a great example for you. I was gonna use the Draco system
Mhm.
and talk about reptilians, which are described as being grossed out by humans.
Yeah,
Um, by
they don't like our smell.
Yeah, and then some people depict them as like beings that want to eat us.
Yeah,
And I
they
was like,
do.
well, I couldn't imagine that you would want to eat a meat that you can't stand the smell of.
Well, there's a lot of meat we don't like the smell of until we cook it.
Hmm. They don't seem like the type that want to cook you up first. Not gonna lie.
No, no. It's from what I have heard from other people and from reading over the years is it's a rip fest. You get ripped from limb to limb, and it's not adults that they want; it's children.
Well, and it's more for the torture aspect almost, it seems
Well,
like.
the children, no, the children aren't polluted. This is why you have breeders that breed kids that don't have birth certificates. And they don't give them vaccines or
Careful,
anything.
careful. We're talking about wild stuff now. Don't get too
Yeah,
deep
I
into
don't.
that one.
Let's not go in that direction
I was gonna
because it
say
gets
I
horrible.
know exactly where you're going. I don't
Yep,
disagree with you, but no, when I was talking
not for
about like
YouTube.
yeah, not for
But
YouTube.
these dudes are from fourth density service to self. That's
So
where
do
they
you
come
think?
from.
So do you think these beings are also in our reality? Like they can interact with us on third density?
They can, yeah. They can come in for short periods of time, but for the most part, they send in their little cloned minions.
Okay.
Because as I said, fourth density service to others, STO, has no problem manifesting in third density, but they come in as an ethereal being. They're like wisps. When a fourth density service to self comes into our being, they are very physical, they're very dense. And it's very difficult for them to come into third density. It takes a lot of their energy. And like I said, it's very exhausting to them. So they send in other beings or they co opt people on this end to do their bidding because there are humans here who have seen these beings on a regular basis. Karen Hudes was one that saw the one that stays in the Vatican.
I know what you mean. um,
So it's hard for them to maintain the physical body in this density and not be purely exhausted. They have to go back to fourth density.
One I've also heard that there's like there's tools that the like specifically I've heard of a tool that was a belt.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Their
almost like a
bracelets, belts, necklaces, chest pieces. They
yeah.
different things
But
have
that's the
different.
only way that they're actually able to maintain it.
Some of them, not all of them.
And it's not even for long periods of time. Like that's when people usually catch the slip ups.
Mm-hmm. I think that's when I caught that guy in St. Thomas, the two-dimensional man. I called
Hmm.
into Aaron about it. That was weird. That was really weird.
That was a weird video. And then watching, if we're talking about the same video, and then watching it get changed live and watching the color bleed onto the American flag in the background. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Having a hard time remembering that.
The
If it was
red,
on Aaron's, I saw it.
it was a red speech.
Oh, that. Oh my God. And the servicemen were CGI and they were flat because somebody caught there with their iPhone. They caught a picture of them from the
Yeah.
side. They were projected.
That was the flat ones I thought you were talking about. And then
No,
I watched
no.
CNN display it live, and they were trying to change the color because they didn't like how red it was. I don't know.
Yeah, they tried to turn it pink while we were watching. That
Yeah,
was
and then it
hysterical.
started bleeding onto the flag, and you could see that they were doing it.
Yep. That was funny.
That was
Poor Dementia
comical.
Joe. This is elder abuse. No, the two-dimensional man I saw was when I lived in the Virgin Islands. I was in think it was Drake's Passage. They've got these old Danish passages that are like 250 years old, and they've turned them into courtyards. So there was a restaurant in there that had the chairs and everything out in the courtyard. And in front of you, you could see waterfront through the archway, and behind you, you could see Main Street through the archway. But otherwise, you were enclosed with the shops and the restaurant. So I used to stop there every morning. I'd come down the mountain, and I was reading Carlos Castaneda's books at the time. And that's why it really freaked me out, because I was reading, I think, the third book, and I was getting up to pay my bill to go into work because we had a restaurant in town and we opened at 10. So I would come down with my friend because she came down an hour and a half early. I grabbed some coffee and breakfast, and then I'd go to work. So I'm standing there and I'm paying my bill, and I look up. She just brought the check, and I look up, and at the end of the passageway on waterfront, there's a guy that looks like he's cut out a poster board, black poster board. And at first I thought he was standing in the shadows, and I kept looking at him, and he was just flat black. There was nothing three-dimensional about him, and people were walking in front of him and behind him, but he just had the appearance of a black poster board cutout, but he was moving. That's what was really weird. And he wasn't dressed like people dress on the island. He was wearing a suit and a hat, a fedora.
Were the movements like different?
Normal, perfectly normal. Like he was waiting for somebody, putting his hand in his pocket, turning, looking up to the left, looking up to the right. But there was nothing three-dimensional about him. And the people walking in front of him and behind him were acting like they didn't even notice him. And when I thought somebody would bump into him to see if I was seeing correctly, nobody was bumping into him. They weren't walking through him. They were walking in front of him and behind him, but he was nothing more than two-dimensional cutout man, but he was moving. And I was fascinated. I just stood there staring at him, and the waitress came, and what was it? I looked down. Oh, I know what it was. I had paid my check, and she came with my change, and I looked down to pick up my change.
Mudrabbit just cut out for a minute. When I looked down to pick up my change is where we're going to start this back up.
Okay, am I back?
When I looked down to pick up my change.
Okay, I looked down to pick up my change and my book and my purse. And when I looked up again, I was going to go out that entrance because I wanted to get a closer look. He was gone. When I looked up, he was just gone. Strangest thing I've ever seen. Well, not the strangest thing, but one of the stranger things.
So you say he looked two-dimensional. Well, so this kind of brings me back to my question I was talking about earlier about one. I said dimensional. I apologize. I'm butchering the one thing we were trying to talk about. We were talking about how higher density. I questioned you about how lower densities could possibly pass through other densities, and I was wondering if that's because of the higher density being able to control it. So you were talking about something that you would consider maybe fourth density or higher, and objects were passing through it that you'd expect to bump into it.
Things weren't passing through him. They were passing in front and behind. He was like a cutout poster board. He was flat.
Oh, so because he was so flat, they weren't actually crossing his path.
Right. They were just walking in front of him and behind him. I could see the people passing on the street, and they didn't. Nobody looked like they saw him. Nobody looked up at him. And in the islands, the traditional thing to do is everybody knows everybody on an island. That island is only 3 miles at its widest and 6 miles tip to tip. Everybody knows everybody on the island. And you don't say, hi, how are you? Hello, how's your mom? You say, okay. And that encompasses everything. You see somebody you know, you raise your hand, you say, okay. They raise their hand, they say, okay, and they keep going. Nobody was raising their hand to this man. Nobody was nodding at him. And which is an unusual thing when you're a native on that island, because when you know everybody, you must say at least between waterfront and back street, you say okay and raise your hand to somebody at least a dozen times. Okay, 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 okay. Because if you had to stop and ask how everybody was, it'd take all day to get to work. So that's just the custom down there. And nobody was doing it to this man. So that told me he didn't belong there, number one. And
Do
he
you
wasn't
think
a,
they didn't perceive him and you only perceived him like
I
so if
don't think they
I'm
saw
thinking
him.
of somebody I'm thinking of somebody across the street and if I'm thinking of them being really thin and your eye couldn't pick them up because of the angle that you were walking towards them, like that makes
He
sense.
was
Like maybe they didn't notice that entity and
he
you
was
just
dead
noticed him
ahead
because
of
of the
me
angle that you were at.
he was dead ahead of me, I'd say about 20, 25 feet. Not far at all.
Okay.
Standing in the archway on the sidewalk, and people were walking past him, going in front of him and behind him, and he was flat. He was friggin' flat, like a
But do you
poster.
think that was from your angle? Do you think they would have just, not noticed him walking from their angle?
No, no, there's no way people could have not seen this man. It
Unless
was
he was
just,
two-dimensional, like you described it.
I don't know what the dynamic was going on the street, but I was going to exit the Gata that direction because I wanted to get a closer look at him, and he was
And that's
gone.
why I wondered about the movements, if it was like a two-dimensional movement or it's like they were
Yeah, like if
walking
he turned
sideways.
sideways, nobody would see him.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was very weird. And because I was really avidly reading the Carlos Castaneda series. It was, those sort of things click in your brain. And when I discussed it with my mother, she says, when you trigger these things in your head, whether it be through a story or a movie or somebody talking to you, sometimes the universe will test you. And I've been
Yeah.
tested a few times.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if the idea of what you think of as density is true, then the whole thing would be a test.
Yeah, everything is a school. Between
Yeah.
here and fifth, it's all a school. And we all evolve and we're all on this evolutionary path, everybody at different levels, and some people more advanced than others, which is why you have to be kind to people who don't have a clue because they really are struggling. They don't understand things other people understand. And if you're aware of certain things, then you're also aware that there are people that aren't.
Yeah.
So you have to set an example for them. Even if it's just smiling at a child or being kind to somebody in the store or helping somebody without a hand, which is what I did today. Some guy was having trouble loading stuff in his car and I looked at him. He was kind of awkward. He was missing his left hand. So I just walked over and grabbed a couple of his bags and helped him in the trunk, said goodbye. It's what we're learning. It's not what we can get, and it's not who dies with the most toys wins. It's what we learn.
Let me catch up the chat a little bit here.
Sure.
Chase had a question for you. She said, "What is Mudrabbit's thought on Sanskrit? Is it Sanskrit or Sanskrit for
Sanskrit?
raising vibrations?"
How do you mean, like the letters themselves?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll give her a chance to catch up. And then Terry also said, "Why do you think everyone fights over gold belts in combat sports?" And my immediate response was more like, "Oh, okay. Why is it that we praise gold so much? Not even just belts in combat sports. What? Because I've always made this association with what we would call the Anunnaki or something like that.
That'll
Like that's the only
that
thing I can point to. But that also reminds me of what you said with density when it comes to us serving the needs of a higher density being because they wanted us to do something. It's not. It's not a. It's not a progression in density. It's you're serving somebody else.
we didn't get put here to serve anything on a higher density. We got put here to serve our fellow man. If you're serving something on a higher density, there's something wrong. No, we're here to serve our fellow man. God is watching over us. The Godhead is up there. It sees all, knows all, and it's got its soldiers right below it on sixth density. And they're watching us. But there's nothing we can do to affect them other than to remember them daily and be thankful for what we do have. And that's my method of doing it, is being thankful for the good things I do have. But we're not here to serve them. There's no way to serve them. They want us to serve them by serving each other.
Yeah.
By serving
Yeah.
your fellow man, you serve God.
But so to be distracted and to not serve others and to to serve something else, it's the same idea that I think they perceive in Christianity with not worshiping false idols.
Right.
I almost think it's that same idea as you could easily be distracted to worship a false idol and not know that you were.
How about, let me put it to you this way. Instead of thinking of false idols as statues and flags and insignias and such,
No,
think
I
of
think of one as person. I think the Pope is a false idol.
yes, think of them as the Hollywood stars. Think of them
Yeah,
as our
I think of
politicians. Think of
anybody
them
that's
as
put in the
anybody
spotlight.
famous.
Yeah, anybody that's put in the spotlight, no matter what you want to call them, a movie star, an actor, an actress, a musician, whatever. Anybody that's
Right.
put in the spotlight and propelled as being the right answer to anything.
Absolutely. That's false idols. We already know what we have to do. We all inherently know the difference between good and bad. Even psychopaths know the difference between right and wrong. They just choose to do wrong because it feels good. But
Yeah.
we all know the difference if what we're doing is the right thing or what we're doing is the wrong thing. And if something in the back of your head tells you what you're doing is the wrong thing, stop. By all means,
Well,
stop doing it.
do you think being on this density you would confuse feeling good with feeling good about yourself? Because
Yeah.
I think that's where people usually veer off the path with
Yeah.
self gratification.
We had almost a whole year discussing that one. There is service to others for the pure, just to serve others, purely to serve others. And then there are those that serve others for to get attention. That's still service to self. You've got all these people like Bill Gates, and they go out and they're philanthropists, and oh, I give to this and I give to that. But look at what they're doing behind the scenes, and look at Epstein. I mean, come
Yeah.
on, they're all philanthropists. They're all doing the
Well,
good
so
deed, but they're doing it to get money. They're doing it for attention. They're doing
oh
it for
yeah,
accolades.
they're
Yeah, that
extraditing people. They're
yeah,
extraditing
that's
people in the fullest.
yeah, that's not service to others. That's service to self in its purest form.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fucking blackmail at its
Yeah,
purest form.
yeah,
But sorry, let me catch up the chat a little bit more.
sure.
Infinite Moi, thank you for being here. Infinite Moi was also saying, yeah, there's layers to it, Jacob.
Hey,
And I
Infinite
agree.
Moi.
There definitely is layers to it. Zachary Kim said, by the way, Jacob, did you hear about the new Little Mermaid live action trailer?
Live
No,
action
but
trailer.
I do not want to see it now that you described it as live action. CM had a good question, well, a good statement slash question. He said, lots of people look at kindness as weakness. So how can you help someone looking to take advantage of you? I feel like there's also a balance to that when it comes to feeling like you're helping somebody, but you're actually
I
enabling
think
them.
I think for some of us what happens is when we're being nice to somebody, we go into a certain mode where our tolerance level just goes way up and we tolerate more from them than we should. But you should also be able to say the truth to them. You should also be able to say, look, this is what I can do to help you. But if this is what you need, then you need to find professional help, or you need to find somebody that does this professionally, or. This, you
Yeah.
have to be able to draw your line. You have to be able to make a limit because we can't exhaust ourselves helping everybody. We got to take care
Well,
of ourselves too.
it's that general idea of teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it you can always give people the tools, but you can enable somebody by thinking you're helping them too, and it could be a perpetual cycle. Like, yeah, it's very easy to think that you're helping a drug addict with their problem,
Yeah,
and
people
what
have
you're
a
actually
hard
doing is
time.
giving them funds
Yeah,
to
people have a hard
support.
time setting boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up with a psychopathic biological father. When I talk about my dad, I'm talking about my stepfather here, who is my daddy. Okay. My biological father was a psychopath. My brother was a sociopath. So I see these people coming at me a mile away, but not everybody does. And you could look at what I did with, well, I can't say, you warn people. You say,
Yeah.
look, this person's a portal. Careful. And what happens? They go right for them because why? They feel sorry for them. They work on your pity. They work on your emotions. And this is what we see with politics nowadays. Everybody wants to get your feels going.
Well,
When
and
they
I
can
think
get
it's
you on the emotional side, they've got you.
well, and I think that's all forms of art, whether whatever you call entertainment, that's all forms of entertainment. They want to pull on your heartstrings. They want to get you feeling a type of way about any art.
Right. Think of the children.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean,
Climate change. Send them more money. They'll fix the climate. Yeah, that's the biggest load of
well,
crap I've
and that's
ever heard.
people look at me a hard way because I feel that way about Fox and I feel that way about CNN. I feel like both of them, one of them's trying to incite fear, and the other one's trying to incite fear. They're just doing it in different ways.
Yeah, because if you're in a place of fear, you're easy to control.
Exactly. They would rather not give you the tools, show you the extremes on both sides, rather than trying to find commonality between
Yeah.
people on this
Okay,
planet.
this is a fourth density tactic to keep the populace in fear.
To keep the populace in fear when she comes back. This is a fourth density tactic. She just timed out for a minute.
Okay, I'm back.
So fourth density tactic timed out with fear.
Yeah, that's the tactic they use when they come into third density. They use the fear tactic. You know, they tell their minions here, our politicians here, this is what you have to tell your populace. That's what you have to tell. I mean, if I could tell you how many disasters we were supposed to see between 1973 and now, you wouldn't believe it.
Well, then, but do you consider them like a fourth density tactic, or do you
Yes.
think of it also people on third density being distracted by things that they consider more important, whether it's money and things? Because I don't think necessarily money is a fourth density
No,
tactic.
but because we're service to self oriented here on this planet,
Yeah.
we're all
Yes.
there are planets out there that are service to other that are in third density, but they're in a different dimension. We're in this dimension right here, and this planet right here in this dimension on third density is service to self. We're here to learn this lesson. And service to self means that we're worried about our bills, we're worried about feeding our kids, we're worried about the school curriculum, we're worried about our jobs, we're worried about our cars. These are all service to self things that they use to put us in fear, because the minute they lock us down for some sort of disease or they do something to tell us there's a meteor coming, that's the first thing everybody thinks is, oh my God, I got to take care of my stuff. And
Yeah.
everybody goes into fear. I see it every time we have a hurricane coming. It's like, people, don't be stupid, just stay prepped. I mean, people go crazy in the grocery stores here right before a hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they do. It's the perpetuation of what they're seeing. It's
Right,
when you have access to this information and this is the information you can see the easiest, then that's the platform they're going to use, whether it's
right.
TV, whether it's radio, whether it's the internet. I
Hmm.
think all of these are
They're all used.
platforms that can be taken advantage of.
Oh, yeah, they are taken
I think
advantage
Chase
of. Facebook is in court right now.
I think Chase is answering. She said, the practice of being an American yogi, connecting to original practices of raising vibrations by following um, original Sanskrit.
Oh, okay. I'm probably following the original pathways that they laid out for them. I think I think different people are geared different ways. I think Terry asked me one time about meditation, and I have tried and tried and tried. I can't. My brain goes a click a minute. I can't stop. So I do like an all day awareness type of prayer. It's a constant conversation. When I'm in my quiet time and nobody's talking to me and I'm just doing my thing, I'm talking with a higher power. I'm talking with God. And even if it's only just a casual conversation, I'm trying to maintain that connection. I can't meditate because the minute I sit down, I get a minute into it and I've thought about everything I have to do tomorrow.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I can't
I have
still
to
my
really
mind.
be in a different mindset to be able to meditate on that level.
Yeah, I've got a constant flow going. So,
We got a
but
couple
there are
more things.
ways around it. There are ways around it.
We
And
got a couple more things coming in. Andre just came in. Gosh, Andre, I wish you were here a little bit earlier. It was nice seeing you. But JP was also saying something. He said anything under a structure is always going to be fear mongering.
oh yeah, you got that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
See
then Andre
on
said,
fourth
"Hello, Jacob.
density.
Hello, brother. Hello, Mudrabbit. How are you?"
Hello, Andre. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
And
Now, the way
Infinite.
fourth density service to others was explained to us was everything is corporeal. In other words, you don't have a house like you know it here. You don't have a dwelling. You don't have food. You make it. You bring it in by thought. Okay, say I feel like having a house today and I feel like having a garden in front of it. That's what I have for that day.
Hmm.
Nothing is permanent in fourth density service to others. It's all corporeal, it's all controlled by thought. And if you want to live in a cabin by the lake, you can do so. You can do whatever you want, but you don't have to go out and earn money to buy it. You think it into reality. That's how it works on fourth density service to other. It's the exact opposite on fourth density service to self. That's why I say this is probably the heaven hell dichotomy they speak of in the Bible, because on fourth density service to self, it's like it is here, but to the 100th degree. It's hard labor, it's hard work, it's always being broke, it's always having to maintain. It's like living here, but worse.
Well, I think this is a great transition into what Infinite said. He said, "True. And how do we counter it? Any news becomes bad news or good news." I think the best way to counter it is to not think of things like bad news or good news, because that itself is a structure meant to put your mind in a certain state. I was talking to Joey Gage about this last night, and we were talking about this is the yin and yang of life, what you call
Hmm.
positive and negative, what we call heaven and hell. And I think that's just a depiction.
Well, that's
It's
all
the
mixed
balance
here
of
together.
nature.
We got to learn
It's
to deal with both of them.
well, I think it's the balance of nature. I feel like that there always is what you would consider positive in your life and negative in your life that are all going to affect your life and your I don't your experience on this plane of existence, and it's your job to adapt and not to let one or another drag you down.
I don't think we should ignore bad news, but I think the way we handle it has to change.
Yeah, how it impacts you
Right.
personally.
How we allow it to impact us. I mean, there's some
Because
things that
well, in
happen.
general, that's the thing I think that we don't notice about social media. All of these bad things were going on before. Now we just have them at a click of a fingertip.
But
So you're hearing about them more.
you also have a bunch of narcissistic brats out there that want attention. So they're going to take everything that happens to them and magnify it and come online and cry about it.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm sorry, but I am a cynic. So
It's just what wants to be perpetuated, said JP.
right.
Well, and it's just what these uh, by Mudrabbit's according is what these densities want you to perpetuate. They want to create a source of divide. They don't want you to grow as as a person or as a density and actually be able to move to a higher existence. They want to keep you down if they're not trying to excel you forward.
Right. See, we're at a good mix right here on this planet between heaven and hell. And you can make your heaven and you can make your own hell. And we do it daily. We do it daily by the choices we make and how we let news affect us.
Yeah. And that's why I think the news is perpetuated as this is the extreme right, this is the extreme left. We want you to think everybody falls on this line when the majority of people actually fall can
In the
consider
middle.
interest. Yeah.
Yep. This whole division they're trying to spawn in us is all farce. It's not working. I live in a
Oh, I would say it's working. I would
No,
say
it's
it's
not.
definitely
Not.
working. I would say that there's people that are operating on a higher level that don't feed into it, but there's also
Right.
people on a lower level that feed into it quite quite vulnerably.
Yeah, because it gets them attention.
Yeah. And that's the
It
serving
gets them
self.
attention. It gets them money. It gets them all kinds of stuff. I
Well, and
mean,
that's the serving self that you're referring to. I mean,
right.
but they don't realize it as serving self. They think
Well,
of
they
it
don't
as
care. They don't
serving the
care.
public.
You have, if you look at the population, and I've discussed this with you and Michael before, the way it was described to us is you're in a group of 3 people, you and 2 other people. Chances are one of those people is a portal. Now, portals, that's a whole different story. These are energy and emotional vampires. And they are people who can probably be in their 40s and 50s, but they still act like they never grew up. And they will suck the friggin' life out of you. Now, we're not supposed to abandon these people. We're not supposed to think badly of these people, but we are supposed to recognize them for what they are as being newly incarnated into third density. It's like taking a kindergartner. Say you're in high school and you have to take a kindergartner, explain the day to them, what they have to do. I think this is what Jesus was trying to teach, or the figure who is labeled as Jesus was trying to put out in the Bible by teaching by example. In other words, don't lose your temper with these people unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't cause harm to these people unless they're attacking you, because these people don't know better. You've got a third of the world population out there that are newly incarnated as humans and haven't got any idea how to treat other people. It's all about them.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is there are the most beautiful women and the most good looking guys.
Well, and did you describe it as social vampires?
Yeah, social vampires and energy
Because
demons.
because I don't think a lot of people understand. They literally drain the
Yeah,
life force from you, and because they know you're going to put the energy into them. They
right.
draw themselves to good people that are ready to sit down and talk to them.
Yeah. It's like
It's
it's like a 2-year-old that wants attention. They'll do anything to get that
yeah,
attention. And when you stop giving them that attention, they'll throw a fucking temper tantrum.
yeah. Really. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
these are
no.
portals.
Andre said,
And
good to
we've
see
all we've
you
all
on
been
the
portals.
show, Mud Rabbit.
We've all Thank you, Andre. Yeah, these people, they can try your patience. Now the problem with portals is if we recognize that we've got one in the family and you don't raise them right with a good moral compass, then they have the tendency to turn into sociopaths and psychopaths because their upper chakras aren't fully developed yet, so they don't have the full ability of empathy and compassion. Psychopaths don't have it at all and never will develop it. Sociopaths have a rudimentary understanding of what it is, but then they use it against you. So these people have the tendency to swing that way if society allows it. And right now we have a society that actually promulgates that. I mean, you can see it
Yeah.
on social media. How many of these kids? When I was 14 years old, I was wearing cutoffs. If I ever put makeup on, it was only to go to church. I mean, my God, you've got 14-year-old girls. Let's go even further. 12-year-old girls out there, all made up with a push-up bra, the whole 9 yards, and they look like a 19, 20-year-old, and they're out there flaunting themselves online. This is not right.
But that's but
This is
that's the
not right.
social construct. But that's the social constructs that have been presented. Like in order
Yes,
to
this is the
be
example.
considered presentable for an interview, going to church, whatever it was, you wanted to be dressed up. You wanted to
Right.
be not having as many impurities, and that's how they
Right.
pushed makeup in general to society. And it
Yeah, but
started
you
in
look at
the
these.
it started in the
You
50s and 60s.
Yeah, but you look at these little girls now, and it's like, damn, if I had a daughter, I'd have to lock her up.
Oh yeah, I've I've
And I
always
was
told
pretty
people that.
liberal. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, so I understand the pressures they're under. But damn, this is beyond what it was back then.
I've said this to every father that ever told me that they were a father. I was like, "Are you a father of a boy or a girl?" And they'd say, "Oh, okay, I'm a father of a boy." And I'd be
Yeah,
like,
big
"Oh, you have it
difference.
much easier." And they'd go, "Oh, why do I have it much easier?" And I'm like, "Because you have to worry about one uh, little boy's part. I have to worry about all the little boys' parts
Yes.
because I'm a girl. I immediately have to worry about men in general. Like
Yep.
I don't feel like it's just easier to deal with. I've wanted a girl, like a daughter, since I was, I don't know, 14. Like I've never wanted to deal with a boy just because I grew up in a family with three boys. I knew how boys were. I didn't want to be around that. I didn't want to raise something like that.
Now, see, growing up, I hated playing with girls. I've got girlfriends, but I didn't. I played with the guys. I was climbing trees, building forts, the whole nine. I was a tomboy. But girls nowadays, they're missing something. I mean, their parents. Where are their parents? That's what I want to know. Where are their parents? And I will
Checking
say,
out.
raising boys is easier.
Just parenting in general has gone downhill in drastic amounts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I also think it has to do with the adaptation of time. I do think it's hard for some parents, depending on their age or whatever, to conceive the idea of the internet and having to monitor stuff like social media and stuff like that. I do think
No,
it's a
we've
new
got
platform.
we've got two whole generations that have grown up with the internet.
I agree, but I
So
don't know
they
necessarily
know
if their
what's out
parents,
there. These parents
if their
know
parents
what's out there,
necessarily,
but they're not
but they're. And I think in 5 generations it'll be totally understood. But I don't necessarily think that children that have gone through this have parents that are definitely into it enough that know like what's going on. I still see parents nowadays that
You're
have no
right.
idea like how the internet works.
So the kids have been left alone with the internet all this time, and
Yeah,
that's pretty much what's raised our kids.
or, or whatever we put in public education,
Right.
which is another rabbit hole.
Oh, I'm glad we're getting that cleaned up down here.
They say we're doing it everywhere, but sadly, I live in one of the most liberal states in all of the U.S.
The
Um,
day I
it,
went in the hospital, what was that? 3 weeks ago on Thursday when I had the attack, I went in the hospital. The stress I think that put me over the edge was my grandson's school had a bomb threat that day,
oh wow,
and the other grandma Rosa, she went over there to get the kids and couldn't find the little one. That was another story in itself, but I think it was the bomb threat that just put me right over the edge. So my son and his wife pulled the kids out of that school. It was a charter school, by the way, and put them in a parochial school.
I mean,
And this is because the teachers they're leaving left and right because of the new laws in Florida that you can't teach CRT, you can't teach Common Core, you can't teach gender identity. None of that stuff flies down here.
we just the Chicagoland area just passed some very interesting new sex education that I don't necessarily approve of. It's changing right before my eyes, and I can't really
Yeah,
do much about it. And I wish I had the money to afford private school and stuff like
yeah,
that,
right.
but private school also has too much of a religious attachment for me. Because I think there
Well,
should be
in a religious school, you're not going to get gender studies.
no, you're not going to get them at all. I do think gender awareness and gender studies are necessary, but not the way that they're being propelled nowadays. I do think all of that is important. I think we should know the difference between boys and girls, and we should know the difference between what when it comes to health class, what gets somebody pregnant and what causes an STD. We should know these things, but I feel like it should be taught at a certain age. I think this
Well,
is
when
like
I
middle
was young,
school.
those things were taught in high school. But
Yeah, well,
when,
like I was introduced to it in middle school. I was introduced to it poorly. Um, they told me like I learned more about women taking steroids and guys taking steroids and what happened to that more than I learned about when it comes to conceiving a baby or anything like that. So, like, I
Well, I'll
knew
tell you.
where the disconnect was.
Mhm. I'll tell you something funny. I got married at 16. I started dating my husband when I was 14. And the school, we didn't tell the school board. Um, I was already engaged to him by the time I hit a sex ed class. And the things that I knew compared to what they were teaching us were so totally different.
I don't talk about this
And,
online
you
very
know,
much either. I don't talk about this
my
very
15,
much.
my 15-year-old self wanted so badly to stand up and tell the teacher, no, that's not how that works. Do it.
So me and I don't know when the last time I've talked about this online was in general. Um, Jody was 16 when we were together, and I was 17. Um, we met in middle school, maybe before that. We always tell people we met in high school, but we had our child before um, Jody graduated high school. I think I was 1 year out when we had our child, and we've been on and off together ever since. Like, uh, I made it my life's purpose to never be considered like a statistic when it came to being a young parent. They immediately
Right.
assume your kid's going to be the same way, and everybody in your family's fucked from then on. Like, it's just, they immediately put you in a box as being a
Yeah.
young
Oh,
parent.
I know that box very well because the first thing everybody kept asking me because I married so young is, "Are you pregnant?"
Yeah.
First thing everybody asked, "Are you pregnant?" No, I wasn't. I didn't get pregnant until I got married when I was 16. I didn't get pregnant until I was 19, or I didn't have my son until I was 19. So no, I wasn't pregnant when I got married, and I committed an even worse sin. I married a guy 7 years older than me, so
Oh yeah,
that had
we
everything
had sex
wrong.
out of wedlock. We were considered the worst members in our small community
Oh, of course.
by far. And we'd
Nah,
look
I
at
lived with
other
my guy
couples that
before I
were
married him.
around us and that waited, and they're all divorced and separated and not talking to each other anymore. And
Right?
they did it the proper way, like the structure was telling them to do, and it was a whole different outcome than what we ended up with.
Yep,
But
yep.
sorry, I got
I
to catch up
told.
the chat. The chat's like a million miles ahead of us. JP said Chicago, for example, is still way safer than the violence that occurred in the 80s and 90s. It was acknowledged by the national media, but
Mhm.
it wasn't a talking point. Yeah, I think, like I said, when that information is more accessible, people are going to treat it a different way. So everybody's on
Yeah.
different YouTube channels right now. There's a few people on Facebook. We have both YouTube channels up right now. I haven't done this in a while, so just a heads up, you might not see everybody's message that we're talking to. You might have to jump around, or if everybody's got to get to the right place. We got 3 people on my old channel, and we got 4 people on my new channel, and we got one person on Facebook. So I just want to give everybody a heads up. Everybody's in different spots.
Okay.
And then I don't understand this question, Infinite. He said hashtag middle and nice deal with it and get talk to you later. And then he said, are you superior? And then he said smarter question mark. So I'm not really
Oh
sure what
God.
that means.
Oh hell
I
no. There
didn't
are
know
people
what you
out there that are
were
like light years ahead of me.
this well, and this was also a little bit earlier when we were talking, so I'm not sure if we missed something. um then Andre and Zachary Kim are saying hi to each other. um Chase said 100% Mud Rabbit. She was agreeing with you again. Why is nobody concerned about people sexualizing kids? I think this is a very good topic that a lot of people
We
have been
are
talking about
concerned and we're
lately.
doing something about it.
Yeah.
At least in our
I
state,
don't. I don't
we've
think it's
done something about
appropriate.
it.
I don't think it's appropriate for a kid to go to a strip club. I don't think it's appropriate for them to drink alcohol at a young age. I don't think it's appropriate to go to any kind of drag show that might have some kind of sexual influence in it, where people are giving tips to
You
somebody.
know, If
wearing
people,
outfits. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
JP,
I just don't think
I
I
want to
don't.
tell
I
JP
agree
if
with
he,
JP where it doesn't. It shouldn't be sexualizing kids, and it shouldn't come
no, they
off that way.
shouldn't. And JP, if you want your faith in humanity renewed, on YouTube, look up Grady Judd. Grady Judd.
Stephen Crowder just
Judd.
covered. Stephen Crowder just covered something like this recently. He went to one that was in Texas, that was held at a bar, and well, it was actually just it was a distillery and a bar, I believe, and they were inviting kids in for this event, and I
Yeah,
was just like, okay, regardless of what's going on for an event, why are we inviting kids into a bar?
exactly. When I
Like,
ran a bar,
let's just
kids were
end
not
it at that.
allowed.
We don't even have to talk about what the event is.
No, kids
Let's
should
hold it
not be
somewhere else
allowed.
if it has
They
nothing to
should
do with
not be
that.
allowed where there's alcohol.
Right. I don't
Period.
understand where the disconnect in society is, but then we're judged as thinking of people in the wrong way because we're saying, oh, this to us is bringing kids and introducing them to something they shouldn't be around.
Right.
And we're not even talking about the sexual side yet. And then what
No,
else did
but this is where
you?
it starts.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, if you don't consider this grooming, I don't know what you consider grooming.
I don't
This
think
is
it's
a form of,
acceptable at
I
all.
consider it a form of grooming, though.
I do too. Why does he says you're sounding like a part of the problem, to be honest, perpetuating. We're not perpetuating it, we're fighting it. I just had a brownout. It's pouring down rain here, so if you lose my connection, you'll see me in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, check out Grady Judd on YouTube, and you'll see exactly how it's going in Florida. We have arrested so many of these people. It's not funny.
And then Andre said, I got to go, guys. Next time, stay safe. Jacob and Mudrabbit and everyone else. All right. Thank you, Andre.
Okay, Andre.
For being in here.
Catch you later.
Well, and see, when I was younger, but I do think this had a structure on my life. So he said I grew up in a bar and it never caused me issues. So
I grew up in a bar too.
I grew up in a bar atmosphere, for sure.
No, I grew up
My
in a
mom was
bar.
a bartender at a really young age. I think I tried my first cigarette at a really young age. I think I was like 6. And it was because they had those fucking dispenser machines inside of a
Yeah.
bar where you could just pull the fucking thing and you pop money into it, you pull the thing and it would drop a pack of cigarettes out.
Yep.
There was matches all over the counter because that's just how the bar
That's
was.
back when they were
one of
75 cents a pack.
Yes, it was. He's probably cheap as fuck. And my older brother brought me outside to the side of the building. I like the building's still in my town. It's not I think it's a library now, and it's no longer a bar. It used to be a private club, and my mom was a bartender there / ran it, and my brother got me to smoke the cigarette outside of the building, and I coughed, and it was the most horrible experience. And he didn't even try it after I did. He was like, "Oh, well, you sold it well enough that I'm not even going to try this." And I ended up trying like something I shouldn't have tried at my age. And I do think it has an influence. I think it's different for everybody. I remember when I was younger, my dad let me try a beer, and I hated the taste of beer. And to this day, I still don't like the taste of beer. But it was something that I experienced when I was younger. I don't necessarily think people in Europe are doing it wrong when you can have like wine at dinner or something like that, where they introduce you
but the
underage.
alcohol content in some of those countries is a lot lower, so they let the teens drink. My nephew was.
But I think it's understanding it at a responsible
Yeah,
level.
and the alcohol levels, like I said, are much lower, so they're not drinking and driving and creating mayhem. When my nephew was
I
here,
agree with that. Like, what if you're talking about like a lower driving age and everything, like where maybe they're not even driving yet, but you got introduced to it with your family rather than I snuck out and drunk one night with my friends.
oh no, it's weird okay, I only have Lebanon as a reference, but when we were in Lebanon, 14, 15-year-olds can go buy a can of beer and drink it openly, and their parents don't say anything about it because beer is only 2%.
True. Yeah.
So when my
And
nephew
even
came
in
over here,
Florida compared to Illinois, you guys get different alcohol contents than we do in Illinois.
yeah, and Canada we don't get the Molson Ale like we used to in the islands down here because the content is higher. We get the other Molson Ale.
Well,
But
I learned that when I was down in Florida. I was like, oh, they're allowed to sell alcohol 24 hours, but they're only allowed to sell a certain percentage after a certain time. Like, it was
yeah,
weird to
it
me. I
depends
was like, oh, okay,
on
this is
what
different.
county. It depends. No, it depends on what township you're in. For instance, in Hollywood, you can buy any kind of alcohol anytime you want, except on Sunday before noon. Now, in Dania, which are right next door, you can buy alcohol at that time, but you can't in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So all the little towns have their own little.
Well,
little
mine was what Broward County. So I assume
Yeah,
Broward County
we're in Broward.
similar to that.
We're in
And
Broward.
they had a lower percentage. I think it was under 4%,
Something,
for
yeah.
what you're allowed to purchase.
Where was that? In Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, that was in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. It depends on the town you're in. But what
Because
I was saying about
I was just in Wisconsin a week ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, at a wedding, and I knew I wasn't going to get out of the wedding until later, and by then I think I got to a store with like 9 minutes to buy alcohol or something, and I was trying to ask them like what the rules were because I didn't know, and I knew we were going to buy food and stuff like that, and I was like, okay. They were like, oh, you can go pick from all this beer and wine, and like they don't have like percentage levels of what it could be. So you could buy a strong IPA or something like that that's just as strong as alcohol when you're pouring yourself a drink, like a mixed drink.
yeah,
But the alcohol's still all there on the shelf. It's not like it's blocked off. But it's just so weird from state to state, and I don't think
it
there's
is.
like any universal rule. And I often bring this up, like I'm all about states' rules, but I think there should be some universal rules that are set by the federal government that that guide the states to choose what they want to choose.
Well, what the states first have to do, since now we're under state rule, is homogenize all the different counties. If you're going to have a law in South Florida that you can't buy alcohol until noon, it doesn't make any sense because the people in Hollywood just drive over to North Miami or up here to Dania and get what they want.
Yeah.
And it's what?
I mean, and they have dry counties and they have everything else. Like I've been on, I worked at a campus when I was doing working for a company called Service Master. They were like a flood and restoration company, and we were working at some college. I'm not going to list it, but it was a dry county. So for tobacco and also for alcohol. So you had to leave the company in order to actually be able to purchase alcohol or tobacco.
Right.
It was a strange thing, and I wasn't used to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't used to it either because I've lived longer in Miami and in the Virgin Islands. Now, in the Virgin Islands, all the liquor stores close on Sunday anyway. So if you don't get your liquor on Saturday, you're not going to have it on Sunday.
When I've always wondered, is that religious based?
In the islands, it is. Everything closes on Sunday. And even in the islands, you cannot, I mean, there's tourists all the time get told by the police to go back to the ship and cover up because you're not allowed to come into town in your bathing suit. Now, people down here do that all the time, especially in the winter when the Canadians are down. These short little fat ladies walk around in their bathing suits with lace cover-ups, and they've got the cellulite hanging out everywhere. In the islands, they'll send them back to the ship and make them put on a pair of pants. And God forbid you do it on a Sunday. All the islanders will be up in your business.
I learned that on my flight back to Illinois from Florida. I had a shirt I had a shirt on that had writing on it that they made me. They told me I couldn't wear my shirt,
Oh
and
no.
I offered to flip it inside out. And I'm not gonna say the airline because I don't want to be an ass about it. But they said you can flip your shirt inside out. So first I flipped my shirt inside out, and they're like, "Well, we can still read the letters of what was written on the shirt, so you can't wear that shirt." And I remember, I was in I don't know if I was in a pissy mood or what it was, but they offered me a an airline shirt that was like 3 times my size, and I said no. If you told me I can't wear this shirt, I will travel all the way back on the plane without a shirt on. I'll take off my shirt, I'll put it in my bag, nobody will have to look at it, and you guys can explain to everybody why I don't have a shirt on. And they were so pissed about it. I couldn't book another flight there for like 6 months,
Yeah,
and
right.
I eventually was able to again because they couldn't get mad at me about a rule that they didn't explain to me in when I bought my ticket
Yeah,
or
everything's
anything.
arbitrary.
Yeah, I was like, you have to, but now it's written in the rules about your shirt and what you're allowed to have. If there's any profanity on your shirt on this airline now, it's in their
Yeah.
ticket purchase. They actually inform you
Well, you
about it
see,
now. So I was
this
like,
is
oh, I can't.
again this is again where society has dropped the ball because 20, 30 years ago nobody would even think about wearing something like that because we all had it in our minds to think, you know. Now it's like everybody's got a saying on their shirt, everybody's got to, make their statement, and now people are starting to take objections to it. So it's more of this liberal bullshit.
Well, and that's how exactly how I thought of it because it wasn't like super offensive. Um, it was more a knock on myself than
Mm-hmm.
anything. I was coming back from Florida, and I had a shirt on the back of it. It said "Midwest as fuck," and it was just a knock on myself.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't really a knock on anybody else. And that they told me I had to take it off because there was kids on the plane, and the kids
yeah.
that were on the plane were infants. And I was just like, oh, I didn't
Infants
realize it
can read.
was like, oh,
it's
it was.
just it's just getting crazy. I sit here and I just watch the world go by and I think, wow, I swear to God, there are two movies. It's a cross between Idiocracy and, oh God, what's the name of the other movie? Wild in the Streets. Wild
I
in the
fucking love
Streets.
it. I love it. Idiocracy. I think that's
Yeah.
where we're headed.
Well, we're living in it right now between
Oh
Idiocracy
no,
and
we
Wild
haven't
in the
gotten there
Streets.
yet. Do you think it's
Have
going to
you
turn
have you
the
ever
other
seen
way?
it?
Do you think it's going to turn the other way before it gets closer to
No, but it's going to
idiocracy?
get close. No, it's going to
Yeah,
get close. But
but
if you've
I
ever
do agree
seen
we're
Wild
living
in the
both.
Streets, you've got to see that movie.
No, I've seen Wild in the Streets. I say
Yeah,
I would say we are living both, but I wonder
yeah.
which way it's going to propel towards most because I think it's going to go more towards idiocracy and then it's
Hmm.
going to leave more towards Wild in the Streets
Yeah, yeah.
because sadly, with my faith in humanity, I think we're going to eventually get to a point where I don't want to see another civil war, and I would never want to see another civil war, but I could see that happening with the divide
No,
created in society.
there's not going to be a civil war. This is just what they want. They're not going to get it. This is
I
just
hope
more bullshit. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We've been assured that there's more good people than bad. People just want to live their lives. They don't want to cause problems for other people. It's a small majority of people that's stirring up all this problem. And it's going to get really interesting in October. But anyway, we're far from the original topic.
Oh no, this I feel like all of this fits on our original
Yeah,
topic.
it does.
Well,
And I'll expand
when
out
it comes to
further.
actually raising density, which was what we were originally talking about,
Well,
well,
yeah,
density in
education
general
has a
and
lot to do with
separation,
it.
because I feel like that's half the problem with the people or the beings on our density is we get distracted by things that aren't really perpetuating the right idea.
Right. But if you go so
So
far as to actually think of ascension, go further beyond all this. Right now, We
Well, and
should
even
only
if
be.
you could explain it to people on a simple level of these are the right things you actually need to be doing, rather than because most people don't know what service to self means. They only think about, oh, okay, how is this going to advantage me? They don't really think about it when they're making a decision.
Right. And well, it's never put to them that way. I mean, people think of it, because the world tells you get it while you can and get it before somebody else does. But nobody sits a child down and explains to them, if you ask yourself that what you're doing right now serves you or serves somebody else, just answer that to yourself. You don't even have to make the child answer you, just make them think about it. And that's enough to let them understand it as they grow up, because what we need is another generation of children growing up understanding this. And we've had a whole generation of people that failed to teach this to their children.
Chase said, Mudrabbit, my sister said her sheriff is Chronister. She said Sheriff Judd is Polk County, and
Yes,
hour inland from her, she's coastal.
yes. I love what Grady Judd is doing, and he's setting a good example for the rest of the sheriffs. And because of good sheriffs like him, it's putting a light on sheriffs like the asshole we have in Broward County. Now he's in trouble.
Broward County's been in trouble for a while.
Well, Broward County's been run by Debbie Wasserman Schultz for way too long. And while the whole state turned from blue to red over the years, Broward and another one up on the West Coast is still blue.
CM said Grady is awesome.
Yes, Grady is awesome. And I love the way he talks. He reminds me of my grandfather. He explains things very simply.
Well, yeah, and that's what you want from a politician, and then them not beating behind the bush when they're not talking to people simply.
Well, he's the sheriff. He's doing exactly what sheriffs are supposed to do. When people want to change their government, they go for their governor, not the federal government. You got to affect your state.
Well, and that's hoping your governors. That's hoping
right.
Your governor, when you vote them in, is going to still serve your interest, because they could very well go the other way.
If you want to affect anything locally, it's your sheriff. Your sheriff.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of people that are considered people that make decisions for Illinois.
Right.
Adam Schiff, that don't necessarily follow along the lines of the public.
Right. Or the Constitution.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking Lori Lightfoot, whether we're talking about Fisker, whether we're talking about Adam Schiff, like these to me are Republicans from California that I can't really relate.
Rhinos, Republican in name only.
Yeah, it's only for a vote in.
Yeah,
you're writing off this party for no reason.
Schiff is Mossad. We know that.
Oh,
so
Schiff's a fucking.
He's also heavy. Related to the Rothschilds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, just watch the show. It's gonna get good when Durham comes out with his stuff in October. It's gonna get really good. They're already freaking out over Danchenko. The FBI paid this guy to lie to them, and then they built a false investigation on it. So now this is all coming out, and Durham has the goods, and they're all panicking right now because this is why they raided Trump. They need those papers because he declassified them. They don't want the public to see them.
So I'm hoping this goes into the record, because I'm not going to delete this. I'm convinced that people are going to start noticing this interview that I watched recently. It was on Joe Rogan's podcast. People pick and choose which interviews they want to watch from Joe Rogan.
I love Joe Rogan.
He did an interview with a former CIA higher up, and the CIA higher up claimed that he's got a lot of friends that are higher up in the CIA, and they wouldn't they wouldn't do things intentionally to harm another. And then he
Right.
went on to state that there is a chain of command and an order in which to declassify things as a president. And I was like,
Hmm.
wait a minute, what you're saying isn't true. There's not an order. There's not a a strategic thing that you're supposed to fill out
No,
in order to declassify things as a president. As a president,
no.
you can say, I'm declassifying this because I actually called into a radio show and was talking about this with somebody. Uh, President Carter released declassified things after his presidency. He
Hmm.
doesn't need the support of the previous president,
All
anybody else, in order to
exactly.
declassify things.
All the president has to do is say, "I want this declassified." That's the end of the story. And Kash Patel explains why. So anybody who's interested is Kash Patel, Kash. Last name is Patel. You can look him up. He explains everything beautifully. Um, no, all the president has to do is declare it. What the CIA and the FBI have tried to do is build this lawfare saying that you have to go through this channel and you have to go through that channel. The same thing they do to us with health insurance, which it's not law. It goes against the Constitution. But because we've had so many presidents that just said, oh, well, okay, that's how it's gone.
See, my my
Every,
drink is sitting right next to where I keep my microphone. That's the problem. I apologize about that. But I wanted Mud Rabbit
should
to
I
read
hear ice?
this funny. Yeah, they were saying they could hear my carbonation in my drink. I wanted to show you
Oh, I couldn't.
this comment that just came up. This is absolutely hilarious. Hello there. There's something wrong with your stream. Do you mind dropping the link so I can fix it? Thank you, StreamYard
And it's
support.
StreamYard
Why do
support.
you
They should know it.
right? Right. Don't worry. You guys have the link. Feel free to connect anytime there,
Right.
StreamYard support. You can find it by my
Sure, we
IP.
believe that.
Oh goodness. But Sweetie Ann, thank you for stopping in. It was nice seeing you. Mega love
Yeah,
shout out.
try so hard. Have you seen the new scam they're running on YouTube now?
What's that?
If you make a comment on somebody's upload, they come in on the comments and they pretend to be, they steal the picture and they steal the name of the person of that video, and then they invite you to join them on Telegram.
They let them on Telegram with that same identification, or
Okay, no, yeah, what happens is I go to Charlotte Dobray's channel for my daily laugh.
okay.
Now, I know Charlotte Dobray is not on Telegram. So I made a comment. I comment on some of her videos because they're just so damn funny, some of them. And I got a response back from from another commenter, or actually from what looked like her. They used her picture, they used her name, and said, "Oh, come join me over on Telegram because I have a reward for you. I just love your comments, yada, yada, yada." So I thought, okay, let's find out what this person's up to. So I went over to Telegram and I looked them up, and I didn't follow them, but I did open a chat with them. And I know they're not Charlotte Dobray. So I started talking about videos that don't exist. And they were agreeing with everything I said, and I blocked them. You know, it's just like so many people will tell you, and I've had 3 of them in the last 2 days leave comments under my comment, that they're the channel owner and please come meet me over on Telegram. I think it's Phil Godlowski doing it, but I'm not sure.
I mean, Mud Rabbit, you've seen it in probably the last 3 live streams I've been on. What was it? Was it the gamer community or something like that?
Yeah.
Messaged last time,
Oh,
telling me that
Lord.
I needed a license, and you're like, "Yeah, just talk to the head moderator." Before we, I was just like, "Oh my god, this is comical." Do people really fall for this? Are these like online scammers that that nobody else picks up on? Oh, we lost Mud Rabbit for a minute. She'll be back. I don't know where she left off at.
Okay, I'm back.
All right. But no, I was saying like it was. I think me and you were talking about it last time when it was the gamer, the gamer identification or gamer badge something was
Yeah,
telling me, asking me if I had a badge, and you were like, "Oh, talk to the head moderator. I'll give you
yeah.
any
I told him
information
I'm the
you
head
need."
moderator. I'll see me for licensing and permits.
Had me laughing so hard. I try not to. I try not to feed into that stuff too much, but I think it's hilarious when they do it like that. I
Well,
like.
sometimes you just got to answer them with sarcasm because otherwise
Well, I
they come
haven't
back
seen Surbap
hard.
in a while, and I was like, if Surbap is, if this is your new thing, I like it. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Lord have mercy. He
Oh
must be so
gosh,
bored.
I like their free time. Somebody gets a laugh out of it. If me and you both get a chuckle out of it, I feel like they did their job. You think there's going to let
I love trolling
somebody
the trolls.
exactly? Oh man, there's nothing better. Well, and that's why I was always happy to sit down with um, Granny's because I know Granny's a troll, but at the same time, I have no problem having a dialect with Granny. I can play devil's advocate with anybody, and they'll find themselves a little bit stumped because they don't realize that I listen to both sides of everything, whether I'm talking politics, whether I'm talking science, whether I'm talking anything. I can still make you question your own ideas. It doesn't matter if it's religion. Like I'd rather know everybody's opinion about things rather than having my feet in the sand about an idea. You think there's going to let somebody that knows current shit to go on Rogan, not to get to Eddie Bravo, but they would off that goes against the narrative? Well, I don't know.
JP, if JP wants to hear everybody that's going against the narrative, get on Truth Social. Download the app if you have an iPhone. If not, get on the web on your computer and go to Truth Social and download the app. And if you want to hear the truth, people are talking it over there and nobody's censoring them. And if you want to know
Well, I
what's going
also
on
think
behind the
I
scenes, it's
think there's
there.
a I think there's a strange balance with Joe Rogan and his podcasts. Like when I watched him on with Mark Zuckerberg, he actually brought out a lot of information, but at the same time was keeping it cordial, where Mark wasn't offended and didn't want to do the interview.
Right. I
Like
saw
there was a
that one.
balance there where he said, "Oh, I got all this information from the FBI, and I decided I wasn't going to do these things because this is my vetted source, and this is the reason I made the decisions that I made."
Well, Rogan's
But
going to interview
he
people like
admitted to
that.
something. But he admitted to something with that. He was saying, "No, I don't have a vetted source. These people told me what I was supposed to say, and I
Right. He's
believed
just a
them."
robot.
Yeah.
But JP, I think JP was alluding to anybody that comes out with the real digs. They're the ones that get eliminated. And that's what I was saying. If he wants to hear it, get on Truth Social and you go to Cash Patel, you go to Devin Nunes, you go to Dan Scavino. You can follow them all there. It works just like Twitter did. And they're telling you what's going on. The stuff that the news is not telling you, the stuff that the internet is censoring, they're telling you over on Truth Social.
So we were talking about this a little bit before, and I wouldn't mind touching on it again. What do you think? Do you think what's going on with Mar-a-Lago is going to end up with a civil suit between a former president and the United States government, or what do you think is
Oh
going to
no,
be
okay.
the end outcome?
Here's what I think is going on with Mar-a-Lago. I think Trump planned it that way. Um, he declassified all the papers that will hang their asses, and I mean really hang them.
Well,
He
because
declassified,
I think now we're starting to learn, like with
right.
what's been released publicly,
Well,
it didn't have
Anon's
to do
help.
with nuclear stuff. It also had to do
No,
with
that's
Barack
all
Obama.
theory.
Well, it also had to do with Barack Obama following Trump around
Iran,
and trying to spy on him prior to
right.
his election coming up.
It's not just that. It's Obama and Iran.
I don't
It's
think it's
Hillary
just
and
that.
Benghazi.
I think we're getting the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, yeah, but I'll explain to you what's going on so that when it hits, you won't be so surprised.
Oh, I
Um,
won't be.
all of these things that he has declassified are things that go back many, many decades. And they're trying to get their hands on them because they don't want him to show them to the public. Now, being that he declassified them, he had a right to take them with him. They came to his house. They told him this is how they want them stored, and he put the boxes there. But I think before he took the boxes to Mar-a-Lago, he gave the papers to Durham because they're declassified. He needs them as evidence. So now they're going crazy. They've raided 50 plus people who are connected to Trump trying to find these papers. They've taken away people's telephones. They've raided their homes and their offices and taken their computers, and they're not finding these papers. Why? Because Durham has them, and they're all flipping
Do you think
out.
they're really trying to find these papers?
Yes,
Well, and that's my
yes.
thing. So do you think they didn't find them in June and that's why they researched?
No, they don't have their hands on them. Otherwise, why would they raid more than
But
50 people that are
but think
connected?
about it like this. Former president of I mean not president, mayor of New York, Giuliani. He came out publicly
Mhm,
and said they when they
mhm.
searched in June, they're the ones that put the lock back on the door of the Mar-a-Lago, and it was their lock that was
Right.
there because they claimed that he
Yes.
wasn't protecting it correctly.
Yeah, this is
So,
all
do you
optics
think
because
they
they're
didn't
afraid
get
he's
the
going to run.
information on their first search, and that's why they came back a
No,
second time?
they didn't get a damn thing. If you look at the picture of those folders, they're empty. They're
Well,
all
yeah.
empty. All he has are clippings, newspaper clippings, Time magazines, and they took all of that. He framed the Time magazines where he was on the cover. But the picture's bogus because there's nothing in the folders. He had to declassify these things in order for Durham to bring it to court. Now, Q asked us years ago, how do you get evidence into court? Okay.
So when you say declassifying, what do you think a president or former president has to do in order to declassify something? Because I think that's important when people are talking about this subject. Because a lot of people have a different public persona of what must be done in order to declassify something.
Okay, I'm back. They have to get these papers into court, and Durham can't do it if they're classified. So Trump declassified them all, turned them over to Durham and the military. And when Durham comes to trial, I think it's October 14th, he's going to present all of this. And they're freaking out because he already got Sussman and Danchenko to admit to certain things under oath that's going to come into play later, which is why he didn't prosecute Sussman, because this is little fish. They got to go after the big ones.
Okay.
So this is all in Durham's hands. And when Durham comes, I mean, there's no leaks coming from Durham. The only leaks are coming from the news. And the leaks are so friggin' ridiculous. I mean, first of all, if those papers are classified, then why did they give the picture to the Washington Post? First of all, if they're classified, what was the FBI doing spreading them out like that on the floor? They have no clearance to be looking at them. And
Well,
if they're
so
classified, they have no business taking pictures of them.
true.
So
Well,
now they're in
and I
trouble.
also don't understand, like, if we're just going to break it down on a simple level, not even regarding the file, what does that have to do with going through other rooms in a warrant that have nothing to do with said
Right.
file? You
I
already
was
knew
just
where
going to
they
say,
were.
Barron's room, they rifled through the kids' room, they rifled through Melania's closet. Because they wanted to find shit. They took his passport and his personal papers that they had no right to take.
Yeah, and then they denied having taken them, and
Mm-hmm.
then made a public release by the what is it, the JOC or
Right.
whatever,
Well, that's because
that
he called for a special
that they
master.
returned them. They denied
Yeah.
the whole time that they even had them, and then
Yep.
publicly released that they returned them.
Oh yeah, Garland's lying through his teeth.
Well,
He's
because they would have to prove to a judge that he was
mm-hmm.
a flight risk.
Well, they got a special master. What they were looking for, I think, when they took those passports was to see if he's ever been to Russia.
And that has nothing to
Because
do
they
with
took
anything.
expired passports.
Yeah. Well, only
So they
one of them.
wanted to perpetuate
Only
the
one of
Russia
them was
hoax.
expired
Right.
of the three.
Right. So they
which
wanted
Trump
to,
admitted. Trump
they
even
were
admitted
fishing.
this. He said one of my passports was expired. It hasn't
Yes.
been renewed yet. This was all public knowledge that Trump tried to make
Uh-huh.
public. So
Yep.
I want to distinguish this from the people in the chat that are wondering if I'm like a Trumper or something like that. So there's a lot of people that are Trumpers that surround me in my life, and I think, which I don't know if Mudrabbit agrees with me or not, I think DeSantis would make a better president than Donald Trump. And a lot of people think of me differently
Oh,
because I'm
DeSantis
not
is
a
coming in
Trumper.
the future.
Well, and
DeSantis
I
is
know
coming
your
in the
stance. I
future,
know your
but not
stance
right
on it
now.
because you think he's running for a
We don't
different
want the,
government right now, and he's not working on that right now, right? Oh, I might have just lost her. But yeah, I don't think DeSantis is working on the presidency right now. I think he eventually will go towards that, but I don't think he's working on that right now. And so CMO was asking, so who do you think is the bad guy in all of this? I don't necessarily think it's one. I don't think it's an individual. I think
it's
it.
a cabal. It's a
Yes,
cabal. So what's he asking? What's at the head of it?
probably, and it'd be hard not to point to whoever's in charge of the current presidency because I don't think it's the current president.
Right. You got a shadow president right now.
And then JP said, "LOL, you don't think Trump is an op?"
Oh, he absolutely is an op. But what's to say? Why can't an op be for the good guys, huh?
And
You got to
then
fight
this is
fire with fire.
And then
This whole
JP said
QAnon
this is
thing is a
all a
psyop.
this is all a flaw. I kind of agree with JP. I do think some of this is a false flag.
Okay,
I
there's going
don't
to
know.
be
I
false
don't
flags.
necessarily know how much of it's supposed to be, and how much of it's not supposed to be, and how much the media is trying to play it off.
Yeah,
Because
well, I wouldn't pay any attention to what the media has to say about it because they've
well,
got it all
because
wrong.
I think the media's portrayal of how they handle what Trump says is
Hmm.
a real life action of them either trying to go with the narrative or trying to fight against it.
They're trying to fight it because the Anons have the behind the scenes information,
And then
which is
JP
why
also
they
said
gave it to us so
Trump's
that we could
part of the
tell
cabal.
others. They gave it to us so we could tell others.
I don't know if Trump's part of the cabal.
No,
I do think he's financially motivated
I think
rather
he's part
than
of, I think he's,
being more into the people and what's going on.
I
I
think
don't
he's
think
one of the wizards. I
I can
think he
almost
and
promise you
Cash are
that I don't think
wizards.
I can almost promise you that I don't think Donald Trump, if we were to take it back to third and fourth density, is going to make it to a higher density on his experience in this life.
Well, who's to say he's focused on that right now? He seems to just be focused right here and now.
Yeah, but I think where his
But
focus
I
is
don't think I don't think he's part of the deep state. I think he's one of the wizards.
no, I don't think he's dragging people down as much as
Mhm.
I don't think he's also excelling people.
I
I think
don't
he's
think this is
very
all
I
on
think he's
Trump.
stagnant.
Okay. If you knew his history and you knew what he did in New York, then you would recognize that this is all not about Trump. Trump is the bait. This is military behind the scenes doing this. This has nothing to do with Trump. He's the face of it. He's the bait. He's doing the same thing with the country that he did in New York when he got rid of the mob. And I can tell you about the mob. You know that.
Do you think Trump is different than the family name that he carries?
No, Trump is the straw man that's propped up for everybody to throw tomatoes at while the military does its job in the background.
Well, because what I want to ask you, with your association with your knowledge of Q and stuff
Mhm.
like that, I would want to know, what do you think of Trump's family inheriting and or taking possession of the documents from Nikola Tesla in New York?
It wasn't, it was his Uncle John. I think what happened
That's why
was,
I said
and
that's
I'm
why I
not sure.
stated it as the Trump family
Yeah.
and the Trump family name.
Yeah, they know what's up. They know what's up. They definitely know what's up, because no sooner than he was elected, that first Tesla tower went up in Texas.
And CM said, lots say Trump is just looking for a big cash grab, and he
No,
looks
he
like
doesn't need a
the
cash
bad
grab. He's
guy to
already got
me.
more cash than anybody.
Well,
He's big.
I also think anybody can point back to his presidency, regardless of any kind of pandemic or anything going on at the time. You could point to the growth at the time and say, "Oh, okay, this is phenomenal compared to any other president." And
Right.
that's where I find the never Trumpers and the always Trumpers at a divide, is because they can't acknowledge the good things that he did. I can acknowledge the good
Well,
things that he did. I watched our
okay.
society.
For anybody who would doubt
I think
what's
we're.
going on,
I was
there's
going
a
to say I
lot of
think we're
people out there
divided.
that don't know.
I was going to say I think we're divided as a society at the time when Trump was president. I think a lot of
I'm
it had to
sorry.
do with. I think a lot of it had to do with media, and they wanted to think that he wasn't compassionate to certain ideas. But I don't think there was actually the divide and lack of progress that everybody reports. I think we had one of the best economies. I think we had
I
one of the
agree.
best unemployment rates. I think we had one of the best job growths and of
Well,
any other president. Oh, we might have lost Mudrabbit for a minute.
no, I'm here.
Sopranos
We just
fan,
had a
welcome.
we had a lightning strike.
Oh, okay. Are you guys
Um,
okay, or do you want to keep
yeah,
going for a
it's
little bit?
just typical Florida rainstorm. I would encourage anybody who doesn't know this man to go back and research his history. Read what he said in the 1980s. Look at what he did with the mob. Look at it. Look and see who he worked with and what he did and how it worked. And Rudy Giuliani was in on it. People do not know his history. Trump is the reason the mob is gone. Trump is the reason the guys I used to work for had to go honest.
So I gotta let you know, Sopranos fan is in the house,
Hey,
and
Sopranos fan.
he said, "Hey, Mud and Jacob, a good topic. Trump is clearly not liked by the deep state. Why'd Trump support
No, he's not.
boosters though?"
But
And
like I
there's
said,
the big question.
go back and look at his history and look at how he eliminated the mob in New York and see what he
And
did.
CM
He's
and
doing
that's
the
what CM just
same
said.
thing. He's
CM
doing the
just said
same
that.
thing.
He said the mob. He said the mob isn't gone, but I do agree with Mudrabbit where it was definitely limited in New York, and I think it was also
Yeah.
helped by people like
I
Mayor
used to work for the
Giuliani that kind of
Castellanos.
revamped New York, and
Yeah,
New York
I
is
used
a
to
lot
work
less mob than it was.
yeah, I used to work for the Castellanos, and I can tell you one thing, their businesses went downhill.
Yes, yes.
And their sons had to come to Florida and open up legit businesses because I worked for them in them.
And even in a small town like my own, I watched people like strangely the weirdest environment for me to actually grow up in and to start working in was at a country club in my town, and I got to see the different people that were high up in business in my town.
Yeah.
And there were certain families where they didn't have the same source of income as everybody else. They
Mm-hmm.
had different last names than everybody else, and we could clearly see that there was something different going on in their lifestyle compared to everybody else.
And
Um,
their attitude was probably tougher than everybody else too.
and we had to treat them differently. Like
Mm-hmm.
we were told as workers to treat them differently.
And with these mob kids,
I'm convinced they were, or I think their parents had ties, of course. So which
mm-hmm.
by definition would make them mob kids. But I don't know how much
I
they
know
knew
what you
about
mean about
their
I know
actual
what you mean
source.
about the attitude.
What do you mean?
I know exactly what you mean about the attitude.
Oh yeah, there was a sense of entitlement,
Yeah, yeah.
and
And it's not just that. It's just it's one of these, you just don't cross it. You don't.
well, and it's hard to explain to people. Like I've dealt with a lot of people that make a lot more money than myself, and like that was a great introduction for my first job. To be involved with people that were all making way more money than I could even fathom, but
Mm-hmm.
people treated you differently depending on where they were in their social status and how they had earned their money.
Yeah, well, if you don't have the money, they're the best people to work for. And like I've always said, if you're always honest and run with them and run their business exactly the way they want it, they take care of you.
I'm gonna let you field this question from Sopranos fan. He said, "What are your guys' feelings on Alex Jones being upset with Trump for supporting the boosters?" I gotta use the restroom real quick, but I will
Okay.
double back.
The way I understood it was at the time he didn't have a choice. He couldn't go against them. I think when Trump took his vaccine, it was a mixture, I think, of hydroxychloroquine and quercetin, something like that. And that's what he wanted to bring to the public. But at the time, I think they were up to like 14 assassination attempts, and they were so upset. So instead of him coming out with the truth, they decided to put Fauci front and center and let him shove his feet down his own tiny little throat. And that's exactly what he did. He let Fauci do all the talking. He let Deborah Birx do all the talking. And now, if you look, Deborah Birx has come out with a book where she's pretty much confessed everything. The way they wrote the proposals for the vaccines. Oops, I can't say that word. Not that word. The way they wrote the proposals, the way they submitted them. She put it all in her book. Trump put Fauci out front and center, and the more he talked, the more he contradicted himself. One week you had to do this thing, another week you had to do that thing, and then it was 3 of these things, and then it was 5 of these things. I mean, he's made a total idiot out of himself. And now that Robert Kennedy has come out with the information in the lawsuit, he's decided to retire, and he was going to hang in there until the end of this term. Now he's retiring.
That's a good point, Sopranos fan. CM said they don't have a good retirement plan. I'm assuming you're talking about the mob. And then Sopranos fan said Alex Jones asked Trump to denounce the boosters, and Trump refused, though, still recently.
He can't. Not in the position he's in right now. He can't. But has anybody actually come out and asked him what's in the good booster? No. They're trying to hide it. He can't come out and say it.
Well,
but the lawsuits are flying.
A lot of people don't even want to acknowledge the fact that he was the first one to bring these public.
Well, he brought the original vaccine public, but he wanted to talk about the vaccine he got, not the one they wanted to give us.
That just happened recently, though, that people even acknowledged the fact that he was the one to. I don't know
well,
how
I'm
much
not going to say that word
involvement
again
he
because I
had,
don't want
but
to
I
get
don't
in
know if
trouble.
it had to do with. I don't know if it had to do with him funding these ideas. I don't think he was the one fixing these things up. I was just saying in general. I think he had involvement of bringing these to the public, because he even said when he came into office, from the Obama administration, the masks were actually depleted when it came to what they were able to give out, and it had something going on with the Obama administration prior, and why we didn't have these things so accessible, and that was something that Fauci was pushing at the time, was masks and mask use, which I mean I'm not going to be the one to quote the current science about masks, but you can find it and look it up on your own. If anybody would like to look it up on YouTube, so I can have a current answer of what everybody's view is on masks, because it's hard to follow Fauci. I try to do my best with what the public is supposed to do.
Okay,
And
I think on the mask, the openings are something like 80 microns in the mesh, and viruses are much smaller than that. Not to mention that these paper masks that come from China are loaded with titanium oxide on the white side. And to top it all off, it's caused developmental problems in children. One of the women that was pushing them has
I
just
gotta
announced
interrupt
that her
you.
son has.
Mud Rabbit, I hate to interrupt you, but I have to interrupt you just because this is also one of those touchy
Yeah,
topics.
it's
Um,
YouTube.
well, we're also on Facebook, so I don't even
Mhm.
know if we're still live on Facebook. But if anybody is still on Facebook, give us a hi. How are you? Because I
Yeah.
feel like Facebook is a little more touchy than YouTube. And
Yes,
when it comes to
they
masks,
are.
this is something that has been proven actually for a while. The one thing that I can like publicly acknowledge is unless you're unless you have a reusable mask where you're washing it in a high temperature industrial washer where it's actually something that you can actually clean the
Right.
the bacteria, the viruses, or anything else off of it. Most of the time, it actually just passes through other areas on the
Yep.
masks.
Yep.
With you were describing the size of it and how I think with what we describe as density, with not talking about the topic we were talking about earlier, but density when it comes to the way it's able to pass through. I think certain things are smaller when it comes to that, and I just don't want to quote too much where we might be wrong with current science in 20 days or something like that. And all of a sudden, this gets taken down 20 days later. Like, I just want to be really careful with this topic because it's a touchy one, to say the least. We're talking about Alex Jones and we're talking about coronavirus. So we have to be somewhat careful.
Yeah, we do.
I wish we didn't. I apologize. I apologize for
It's
anybody.
okay. Eventually, it's all going to come to an end. They've already got Facebook on notice.
Oh, CG just gave us a like on Facebook. We're still there.
Cool.
We got
Thanks.
one person. We got one person on the old channel, three people on the new YouTube channel, and we got two people. Excuse me, two people on Facebook right now.
Yeah, I agree with Sopranos fan. My poor
Supposedly,
grandkids.
supposedly there may be a lot more brain disorders, dementia, Alzheimer's in the coming years because of people cutting off oxygen to the brain over the years. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I'm glad you phrased it the way you did.
Even worse, developmental issues in very young children because children use visual cues to learn languages and emotions.
Oh yeah.
So we've set our children back 2 years. Our toddlers, we've set them way back.
Oh, and I don't necessarily think it's all negative because maybe younger like toddlers and below, but when it comes to adults, I think they've learned a way better form of eye language and reading people's personality because I've been able to understand people's feelings and stuff like that through the eye language they give me rather than what's going on with their mouth.
Now, the only place we're required to wear them down here is in a federal building. And since I don't have any business in a court, and since I can do my postage from home, I don't have to go in any one of them. So this whole mask
Yeah,
thing
I
to me
had to
has been
do
a
it. I had to
fiasco.
do
I've
it.
worn, yeah,
I
I
had to
wore
do
Aaron's Invisimask shirt.
you wore the Invisimask.
Yeah, I wore his Invisimask shirt and I wore his Invisimask and I went to Walmart and they kept telling me I had to put a mask on and I kept telling them I got one and walked away. We were never mandated down here, even though individual counties tried to do it. They couldn't. They tried to get the police on it, and it just didn't work.
I'm so glad Ben Shapiro moved to Florida.
I actually like Ben.
No,
He's a little
I
intense.
like Ben. A lot of people say he talks too fast and
He's
he's
just
just
very intense.
Yeah, he's very on it. He's always on it. Like I always think of him as like the Jim Carrey of his profession. Like I
Well,
see why a lot of people couldn't date Jim Carrey because he's doing Jim Carrey all of the time.
oh God, that's my brother. Please.
Yeah, but that's
No,
what
I
it
mean,
reminds me of people that are that intense into politics too.
my main reason for liking Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro is because they're truly objective. They don't let feels get in the way. They don't support one side or the other. They go straight down the middle. And neither one of them are Trump supporters or Biden supporters. And they do find faults in either candidate. This is why I like them, because they're objective. They say things, objective people say things that piss other people off, but it's generally the truth. It's when you get into
And
people who subjectively view things as like our mainstream media, you
I
get
agree
into
with you.
trouble.
Sopranos fan said, I don't mind Shapiro that much either. Don't agree on everything. He's definitely a bull against the insane of the left. And well, I
Yeah,
think he
he
has a
is.
great objective.
He's
I think he has a
logical.
great objective. He's logical, and I think that shows the determination in his political talk is because he doesn't let his religious views actually correlate to what he's talking about on the internet. How he feels
Right. And he's
personally
also,
has nothing to do with what he presents to the public. What he makes his family go through and what he makes all of his followers go through are different. Like it's not. He doesn't say you have to live by this Sabbath in order to
right,
be a good
right.
person,
He
and he
sticks to
doesn't
his
use his
own.
religious
You
arguments
also
to make a
realize
political argument.
Shapiro is also a savant and he's also autistic.
That makes sense. I think people think of autistic or Asperger's as a different way than I do. I think of them as higher functioning humans,
Oh,
and they're
Ben
just doing
Shapiro's
it.
at the
By,
top. I mean,
they're more focused in on something else that we're not thinking of.
yeah, he's very high functioning, and that's another reason I like him because he can't see anything any other way.
Well,
He's
and
very
high
intelligent.
functioning is considered. Well, high
Yeah,
functioning is considered a term that's not really acceptable nowadays.
yeah.
And
Well, I
it's
mean
also
it
from
in the
people in
vein
the
that he
autistic
is more
community
than
and everything else.
capable.
I think people are operating on just a different level that we actually comprehend because
Yeah,
we're
it's
not
a
understanding
label.
on the level.
It's a label. Everybody has to put a
Yeah.
label on it, and that's part of our service to self colony here on this planet. We tend to label everything.
We want to label everything and then also don't want to be put in a category or a group. So it's an oxymoron to
Exactly.
itself. I mean,
Problem we're
wouldn't you
having with
agree?
our
Like
leaders.
100% of people don't want to be put in a category, but at the same time want to have their own exclusive group about it.
Yeah. Well,
I've
what
never
bothers
understood
me
it.
is this live and let live. I want to live and let live. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your sexual preference is. I don't care what sex you want to be. You just do your thing, and I'll be over here doing my thing, and we can live in harmony.
Yeah.
That's how I've always seen it. But now it's
Well,
like you have to
that should
agree
be
to
the
certain
classic.
things.
That should be the classic independent idea, though.
Yeah, but people
At
get
least I
their
thought. At least
panties
I
in a
thought it was.
twist.
Well, I thought that was the independent idea growing up, and then I feel like it's altered at least the public perspective of what an independent is.
I had one liberal ask me what my pronouns were once, only once. I told him I want
I
to be. I told him I wanted to be addressed as Your Majesty while you get down on one knee, and walked away.
So we were talking about something offline, but I want to reference another conversation that me and you had offline one time. It was me, you. I think my daughter was there, and I think my mother was there, and
Oh, that
me and
was on the
you we
YouTube.
were all
Yeah.
talking offline, and we were talking about God, we were talking about the idea of how people present things to one another in order to get their ideas forward. And yeah, it was a while ago. It was back when I used to stream from my basement because I think that's where the
Okay.
stream was. So we were talking. Oh man, I'm losing my train of thought. Damn it. Sorry, I apologize. I'll come back to it. Um,
Okay. What is it about getting your stuff into the public? Being able to get into the market?
not so much getting into the market is identifying people that are centrist and more independent than people that are right wing, because I do think there's a common divide, just like I think there is
Yeah.
from somebody that considers themselves a Democrat compared to a far leftist.
Well, a
Like
far leftist or a
I think there's
person,
extremes on both sides is what I'd
yeah,
like to say.
and any extreme on either side is going to demand that you agree to their terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a constitutionalist, and that's why I like Trump, because everything according to him is according to the Constitution. If he wasn't for the Constitution, I wouldn't be for him.
Do you think Trump is somebody that stands by his word?
Yeah, he always has. Like I said, if you don't understand his history, look at what happened with him in New York and what he did there. He brought
So
that place out of the pit.
let me ask you on a personal level. Do you think when Trump said he's only running on his own finances, he never got support from anybody else?
He didn't on the first race. He used his own money, and he can afford it.
The first race when he
Um,
ran, hold on.
right.
The first race when he ran as Democrat, or when the first race when he ran as Republican?
As Republican 2016, a lot of that was his own money.
So
But
his second race.
then Ross Perot came in and donated $1 million on his deathbed. A lot of donations came out of the closet afterwards. But all his campaigning, all that expense to that was out of his own pocket.
So why didn't he turn those donations down in order to stay loyal to himself?
Well, he didn't keep his salary, and the donations don't go to him. They go to
They
the
go to his campaign, and
right. They
the
goes
chance
to
for him
pay
to
all
get
those people.
said salary that he turned down, though.
Right. And you can always go online and find out, what they did with the money.
When I always
But no,
what I like to look at the most is actually what kind
he's
of
got a good
protection.
reputation here in South Florida, because a lot of people down here have worked for him, worked around him, have met him, know of him. So he's got a pretty darn good reputation down here.
And I mean, Chicago has a Trump Tower. Like we have a good idea of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, the most complaints that actually came out against the Trump company was from Chicago and from Florida,
Well, Chicago and
according
Florida are
to the
also,
media.
they're
We don't
also
know.
hot
It's
cities.
from the Trump college or whatever that he started, and then also
Yeah,
from people that worked at Trump Towers in
that
Florida.
was a flop. So, hey, you have a few. Not everybody is successful in every single endeavor, but at least he was honest about it.
But people get mad at me because I think DeSantis as a JAG member would be a better candidate for president than Donald Trump would be. And I even think
Yeah,
at
but
this point, I get that DeSantis is doing his own thing right now, and he wants to, build up his governorship before he worries about our presidency race. And I understand the
DeSantis
side of that.
DeSantis is on the team. DeSantis is part of Trump's team. He has no intention of running for president if
I
Trump
think
runs
he
for
could be.
president.
I
None
think he could be.
whatsoever. There's a reason
I
he's
don't think
here
he
in.
should. So I don't think he should run against Trump, but I think he could be the captain of the team very easily. And I think always Trumpers um, get that construed because they'd rather be always Trumpers than support anybody else that actually has more valid ideas than himself.
I just got cut again. No, DeSantis has a job to do here in Florida right now. I do see him maybe running for president in the future, maybe 2028, depending on
So,
how this year goes.
so depending on how this year goes and everything goes, I think regardless, DeSantis would make a better candidate than Donald Trump, and
Of
I think he
course.
could be the captain of the team. And a lot of Trump fans think of me differently because I don't think that Trump is the best candidate. I
No,
don't think he's necessarily the best candidate. I always think that when it comes to who are voting for president, it's always the shiniest turd. It's always the
right.
better option between
Okay,
the two.
think of it this way. If Trump is the bait in a military operation, do you want to end that operation and switch the bait? No,
True.
you want to carry that information, you want to carry that operation through. Like I said, Trump is not the head of all this. Trump's the bait. He's the forefront, he's the face, and he's doing the right thing by the people. But the people that are actually doing this are behind the scenes. What was it? Q told us it was less than 10 people that know everything, and 3 of them are non-military. And I think I've figured out who the 2 of the non-military, I think, my opinion, I'm not saying it is, anybody can correct me, I think it's Dinesh D'Souza and Kash Patel.
Oh, Soprano, I gotta address this comment. So, Sopranos fan said, I think the right is too religious and the left doesn't have enough
Yeah,
spirituality.
right.
So, this is
Find a
something that
happy
the left,
medium.
this is something that the left is dying for right now. They are reaching out for the religious community so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there should be a separation between religion and politics. And this is something I've dived into a lot with
Well,
Scientology.
unfortunately, this one is biblical, so we can't separate the two.
But I think
It's
they
not
should
something
be.
that's in our power.
Well,
Huh?
biblical is already putting an ideology around it. What if we talk about something like Scientology and they want to be tax exempt?
I don't get the correlation.
The correlation is they wouldn't be considered biblical because they don't follow the regular Bible that most people follow, and they also want the
I
benefits of being a religious
Okay,
entity.
I forget which drop it was, and you can go to qmap.pub and look it up. There's a search bar at the top left. There was one drop where it was alluded to that when the truth finally all comes out and everything is made known, that it won't just be the left that gets the big sock in the gut. It's going to be those overly religious people, because there's something about religion that we don't know that apparently they think we need to know. So it's going to shake the very foundation of Christianity as well as everything else.
So
So it's good
I
to
got
find a happy
first,
medium.
first I'm gonna catch up with the chat just because
Sure.
Sopranos dropping a lot of good comments. First, he said, "Did you guys know that Ben Shapiro's first cousin is Mara Wilson, the actress who played Matilda?" I didn't
No, I
know.
didn't know that.
That's
How
awesome.
cool.
That's it. That is really cool.
Yeah.
And then he also said Alex Jones is favoring DeSantis over Trump more nowadays, and
Well,
that also
I
makes
take
me feel
everything.
different. That
I
also
take
makes me
everything.
feel different about Alex Jones because I do think Alex Jones is veering away from what he used to preach and what he used to be. I do think Alex Jones is going in a different direction than he was prior to his
This is
whole.
not the first time he's appeared to do this. I take Alex Jones with a grain of salt. He does this all the time. He's controlled opposition.
Okay. But I think it's later in his career. When do you think the last time he did this was?
Oh God, how many times? Every time it seems like the public is turning against Alex Jones, all of a sudden he toes the line and says all the things people want to hear. And then he starts in with shit like DeSantis. It's a division tactic. They want to split the vote if it gets that far. So they're putting this meme out there verbally, and he's one of the guys that does this, and he has a history of doing this.
So I
You
think
can
so
get
I think
you can
so I think Alex
you can
Jones
get truth out of him, but he's going to twist it.
I think Alex Jones is a centrist, and that's why I think he was against George Bush, and that's why I think he had the stance that he had. He may have thought Trump was the right candidate for him at the time, and then realized the pushback from the media
Yeah,
and
well,
changed
Alex
his
Jones has
perspective.
lined pockets.
What's that?
He has lined pockets.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, so I can't trust him. I've known for God. I remember when he was skinny and he was pimping that diet online. So, and he was looking kind of good. I mean, he lost a lot of weight, but that's when his life started to spiral because people started following him. And in our group, we had already done our research on him and found a few connections to Mossad and realized he was controlled opposition, but his popularity was gaining. So anybody that I would tell him, be careful of him, he'll tell you the truth, but he'll also lead you, because his job is to divide. His job is to split.
Yeah, no, he's
So he's
definitely a fear
controlled
monger.
opposition. And by
He's
people
he's
pounding,
definitely as much of he's as much as Fox News as you could
yeah,
take in. He's definitely a fear mongerer.
all these people. You also have to be careful of Dan Winter. You also, well, Vincent Bridges is gone. He's gone and dead. You have to be careful of a lot of these people out there because they really, really are grifters.
Well, I felt this way about Andrew Breitbart, the originally
No,
found like the founder of Breitbart, because
Breitbart was
I think he has
Breitbart was the
contra-
one that uncovered the child trafficking.
I think he did I think he did uncover good things, just like Alex Jones did, but I think he also had contradicting ideas that weren't necessarily reflective of how he felt.
Yeah, I think when you find out what Breitbart found out, it really changes you.
I think you can see. I think you can see the divide in people like Milo Yiannopoulos and Steven Crowder, and
Yeah,
seeing where they went in different directions, all working under Breitbart.
right. And everybody has their own style and their own way of doing
Well,
things.
and Ben
But
Shapiro also worked under Breitbart.
Breitbart exposed the really, really deep, dark underbelly,
So
and
why do
that's what got him killed.
why do all of these three people, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, and Milo Yiannopoulos, have different views, all being guided under the same person?
You'd have to ask them.
Well, true. I 100% agree. You should ask them individually, but as somebody that every one of those people would claim to be somebody they learned something from,
Hmm.
it's interesting to see where they've gotten to in their lives
Oh
and where
yeah,
they
I mean,
sit.
in the very beginning, we all thought Alex Jones was going to be great, but then the habit in our group was to dig on somebody before you put any salt on it. So
I
we
think
did
the
our
biggest I think the biggest thing that Alex Jones ever accomplished was Bohemian Grove.
yeah. Well, that's what got him his fame.
Yeah, and I think after that it was downhill. I think he did predict other things and he did bring other things forward, but
Well,
they
okay,
didn't have the
okay.
same
Let's go to
impact.
the downhill thing. Anytime a reporter uncovers something that the deep state doesn't want them to uncover, their lives go sideways, one way or the other. I don't care how it's done. It's the same thing with the friggin' mob. You cross them and your life goes sideways, whether it appears to be an accident or it appears to be something as benign as your wife cheating on you. It doesn't matter. That shit happens.
Mhm.
And they tend to engineer it that way. Alex Jones got a little too close with that place. And I think that's why his life went sideways.
Well, and I think you saw it in his public persona and also
Mm-hmm.
his court persona.
Yeah. Oh yeah, his public persona, he
No
was
matter what
gone.
the case was, whether you're talking about his life going sideways with his wife, or whether you were talking about the Sandy Hook
Mm-hmm.
incident, no matter what you were talking about with him, gay frogs, doesn't
Yeah,
matter what you were talking about with Alex Jones, his his public persona and what he did in a courtroom was two totally different things.
right. Okay, it's the same difference as somebody coming on and calmly and explicitly and very matter of factly explain to you why the frogs are turning gay versus the guy that comes on all freaking out, screaming and crying and shaking his hands. The goddamn frogs are turning gay. What's that doing? That's alarming people. That's what he does.
Hmm.
He'll take the truth and he'll slam you in the face with it because he wants to scare you with it. He wants to shock you with it. He's a shock jock, just like Howard Stern, just like all of them out there. They want to scare you with it. Because if you're afraid of something, you're more likely to push it over onto the world of fantasy than to research it and find out the truth of it.
So
I mean,
this
look at
is
what's
something.
happening with climate change. Everybody's freaking out about climate change. Has anybody in recent times been taught about the effects of El Nino and La Nina? Every 17 years, the climate changes. Yeah, duh.
And this is something I talk about with people all the time. I Anybody that thinks our planet is at a resting state when it's a stable climate, has poles at either end that are ice, I think you're confused about how this planet works.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
think
We
if
change all the
we're
time. We have
still
many
we're
ice
still
ages, we
coming
have
out, well, I
cycles.
think we're still coming out of an ice age. I do think, just like you do, that our planet has cycles of 30,000 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you will see either polar shifts or at least continental drifts at those points in our planet's lifespan.
Well, you have
You
cycles
think,
within cycles, and they're visible if you look for them. Cycles, you have your
yeah.
17-year cycles, you have your 30-year cycles, you have your 25,000 year cycles, you have a cycle that's 309,000 years. And when these cycles or some of them coincide magnetically, I think something happens to the planet. So you rumble, you get earthquakes, you get volcanoes, you get ice ages, you get all this stuff. We're not sitting in a globe where nothing ever happens. We're on a very dynamic sphere.
Oh no. I mean, science tells you that we want to define this as something that we have figured out,
Mm,
and we know how long it takes Yosemite to actually go off,
yeah.
regardless if we're off by however many thousand years.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not something that can be actually defined when it comes
Okay,
to
go
a
back
science level.
to go back to the densities. These things are variables. Nothing is written in stone. And when people in the group would ask for predictions on one of the channeled sessions, they would tell us no, because there are variables. Depending on what you do here, depending on what you do there, it could change the outcome of your reality. So, people who want to put dates and predictions to things are either fooling others or fooled themselves. Nothing happens on a date that's predicted. Now, some people come pretty close because they're very savvy at studying cycles and what was
Why do
really
you think that is? Do you think
because
it's do you think it's a biblical idea though?
what's
Because
biblical?
I think it's presented as a Christianic and biblical idea that we can't predict the dates of certain events.
Um, I don't think the Bible ever really gave a predicted date,
No, no, no,
but
no.
the
The Bible didn't, and they told people that they couldn't
yeah, they
predict.
can't because
But
reality
I'm
plays out
wondering
differently.
if your idea of why people and persons can't predict dates is based on a biblical belief.
Because we live in a free will universe.
Okay.
We have free will to choose between two things, seven things, several things. I
I
mean, we have
understand
the
the. So
yeah.
this is where I get in an argument with most religious people. Is I don't think that we don't have free will, but in an idea of religion, there is a predetermined destiny,
Yeah.
regardless of free will.
That has to do, I think, with cycles. I think these cycles have gone before and proven themselves before. And I think very smart people have come along and tried to put them down in parables for us so that we would understand when these cycles came back around. And I think we're going through a major cycle, like the end of the Kali Yuga, something like that, maybe the end of the 309,000 year cycle. I don't know, but we've got some pretty big ones converging right now. And the planet is proof of that. The planet's showing it every day. If you go on Dutch Sense, you see how many earthquakes are happening.
Well, and I think we have these examples all over the continent.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I reference people like Graham Hancock and people that point to the Great Pyramids as
Oh,
being
I love
older
Graham
than
Hancock.
science wants to define them. Or if you look at
I love it when
coast,
Hancock and Carlson get together.
yes, yeah, they're great researchers, and people don't put enough credit
Uh-huh.
into their work. But when it comes to like the structures that you can see off the coast of Japan and that haven't been above the surface of the water in at least 3,000 years, just exposed to the water, much less built at that point that they're at. Um, People don't know how to fathom that. And that's how science presents it as public knowledge. They want you to think, okay, we
Yes.
rolled all of the pyramids here on trees. Oh, okay, so you're trying to tell us there was trees in Egypt at the time that you're saying that the earth was aged?
I'm laughing at Soprano fans' comment. Yes, it was funny.
Which one?
He
Oh yeah,
says the
no, I
whole
wanted to get to that one next with Martha's Vineyard because I feel like we haven't talked about that yet, but it would also be a great topic because as somebody that lives outside of a sanctuary city, I think this is the most ironic thing to do to people because I watched Steven Crowder do this to leftist people that said they'd be happy to take in the homeless, and he was calling them up openly
Yep.
and saying, how many people are you willing to take in? And the ironic thing was, more churches and voluntary like communities were able to accommodate more than the people that were perpetuating themselves as like somebody that's open to bring in immigrants. And this was like leftist compared to right. And the leftists weren't as able to accommodate with what they said they were going to be able to do, rather than the people that said we're not actually able to do this, but we will make adjustments in order to be able to do this. What when it comes to churches, religious communities of the sort, they were actually more able to accommodate than anybody that was leftist and said, "I'll take this many people in, and this is something that everybody should do." And he was literally calling them up purposely and saying, "Hey, so we're with so and
See
so
what these
immigration and trying to actually bring people into their place." And they immediately said, well, no, I can't take any individuals in.
they have done this to us southern states all along. In the 70s, we had the Mariolitos. We had a tent city right out in the Orange Bowl parking lot. We've had the Haitians coming over for years. We've had it in Florida. They've had it in Texas. They've had it along the border states. They always do this to us in Washington. So DeSantis said, fuck it, we're not going to be a sanctuary state anymore. And he put them on a plane and sent them to a sanctuary state. They're hypocrites.
Even David Wilcock references Graham Hancock. I couldn't help but laugh. And so I think David uses Graham Hancock as a crutch in his story. I have a love hate with David Wilcock because I think he does talk to some people that are legitimate, and I think he talks to some people that aren't legitimate. And
Yeah, I'm not too.
without going into a channel that me and you both really like, there's certain people I don't think people should talk to. If we're
Yep.
talking about I was going to say bluebird people, that I'm not gonna get into it. Um, Bluebird people and stuff like that. Like, I feel like we start reaching a point where if nobody else talks about this, I'm sorry if I don't think that you're the only one that knows about this. And a lot of people interview different people, and I won't judge people for who they interview, but to believe it wholeheartedly and not just take it in as, okay, this is just somebody interviewing somebody else. You
Oh,
shouldn't be offended
I
by
don't
it.
suggest anybody take my word for anything. These I'm just giving you my personal opinion and what I
No,
have learned over the
I
years.
don't think you are, Mud Rabbit.
Yeah, they want references. I
I'm
have
talking about
references.
a an interviewer that me and you both know that would be happy to talk about blue avian, or what are they called?
The blue avians?
Did I get it right? The avian
Yeah,
beings
blue
that
avians
travel
in
via
the
eggshell.
spheres.
Yeah. I have I have trouble
Okay, let
believing.
me put this into perspective.
Okay,
What are we supposed to be focusing on right now? And what are they trying to get us to focus on?
I agree.
Yeah.
So, and if it's a positive message, it should be something you should be able to follow.
Okay, I take all that stuff. You know, I am a huge science fiction fan, and I used to love sci fi when I used to watch TV. So I kind of take this in the same vein. I'll listen to it, I'll keep an open mind, but you say one thing that goes against something I've already learned or something that I have experienced, and I'm going to start asking questions. And if you're not open to answering those questions, I'm not going to have any more to do with you. It's that simple. I've been through too much BS in my lifetime to put up with the shills. And I think after a while, you start to learn what they look like.
Well, and I don't think necessarily that Wilcock and Hancock are on the same level.
Okay, Hancock has the degrees in the paper. He's educated.
Well, and
Wilcock lost me.
I think it shows by the work that he does with other
Yeah.
people. Like you were referencing, what's his name, that does the the geological research.
Randall Carlson.
Yeah, Daniel Carlson, and that's who he does the most geological research with. I think
Yeah, I
he's
love
done
Randall
books.
Carlson. He's good too.
I think the books that he's done with Daniel
Yeah.
Carlson are a lot better than the ones he originally put out. I think
Mm-hmm.
he dug deeper, and same with his photography, with having his wife more involved. When she was
Yeah.
taking pictures of um, the the structures that were built off the coast of Japan, that was
Mm-hmm.
insane. Nobody realized that that wasn't even exposed to the outside world prior to 2000 or almost 3000 years ago at this point. Like that's so strange to me, to people like that don't look into his research and they go, "Oh, okay, this is just hoobla blah." I really do think that we are a civilization with amnesia, as uh, Hancock would describe it. I do think
Yep.
it's
We
possible
are.
that we had higher technology on this planet prior to what we think of now. Do I
Yeah.
necessarily know if it was humans? No, I don't. Do I necessarily know if we got help from others? No, I don't. I can't make claims on stuff I don't know, but I
No,
will
but the
say,
buildings
oh,
are there.
there's important things to look at.
The buildings are there.
Yeah. How are they built with the
Yeah.
technology that we have that is hard to even produce it at this point?
We don't even have a crane. What is it I saw on Telegram? There is a minaret that's got in India that's got a pedestal on the top that weighs 20,000 pounds. And in 2022, we do not have a crane that can even lift 20,000 pounds.
We're looking at like uh it's not the Colosseum. The the structure in Greece that has most of the Greek gods and the new
The
depiction of the
Parthenon?
Roman gods that were put on it. The Parthal.
The Parthenon?
Yeah, the structure that it was actually put on, the granite tablet that it was
Yeah.
actually put on,
Yeah.
we couldn't even fathom how to move it.
Oh, let me tell you, I've been to Baalbek. There's
Yeah,
no way
okay,
we can move those rocks. The Temple of Jupiter looks like a landing pad. I'm sorry, but that's what it looked like to me.
okay.
They've got the Temple of Bacchus. I mean, the people must have been giants. Oh my God, the arches are huge. And I got to walk through the whole of Baalbek. And the next day we went to Byblos. It's amazing. Byblos looks like it's human made, but Baalbek, there's no way humans could have made that.
In Geo Tepe, I can think of a handful of things. And then you also think of like our astronauts that have done this. Like you can believe Buzz Aldrin on a few things, but you can't believe him on everything. Like
Buzz
I feel
Aldrin's
like
a
you're picking and
Freemason.
choosing. Like
Buzz
what?
Aldrin is a Freemason.
You think he's a Freemason, and that's
He
why
is
he?
a Freemason. He wears the ring.
No, no, no. I'm saying, do you think that's why he produces the information that he produces?
That's why he doesn't tell us all everything.
But I don't think anything that he's ever produced was false.
No, but there's some things he knows he's not going to tell us. I used to
Yeah.
have a close friend that was distantly related to me. Was a 33rd degree Mason. He's passed away since then. But the things that he was able to talk with me about, these guys know things. They won't tell you. They'll allude to it if they think that you understand something and you bring the subject up first, but they will never give you the complete information.
Yeah.
But they'll give you
The
just
last
enough to
thing.
make you think.
Well, who was it? Who was it that me and you were talking to? And they were a Mason, and I was talking to them like I knew I couldn't ask certain
Was that
questions.
the Reverend?
It might have been Reverend, yeah. And
Well, he can
you were
only tell you
immediately
so
on it, and you were
much.
like, you understood right away. Oh, this is something that so and so can't talk about.
Yeah, they can't talk about certain things, and each level only knows so much.
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself lucky. I did get him to tell me a few things, but they're inconsequential. I'm not going to go into them here, but all he did was confirm suspicions that I had. He never gave me any secrets, never told me anything deep and dark. It was questions that I asked him that he confirmed. But they're secretive. They're just secretive. And there's something in masonry where there's a divide where you either go one way, which is a dark path, or you go another way, which is a light path. And I don't think your friend is at that point yet.
I don't think he is either.
No.
He's got a lot of growing to do.
Yeah.
I think he's just coming back with his religious ties that actually bind him to what he actually believes. Because
Yeah.
I do think he has his own beliefs, and I think they're finally starting to reflect through. Um,
Here's
and
the thing about masonry. When you come in there, you don't have to believe in God, but you do have to believe in some kind of deity.
well, I want to put this out for Rev because I haven't talked to Rev in a little while, and a lot of people think of me like differently because I'll do a lot of different. I'll do a lot of different videos. Sometimes I'm playing video games. Sometimes I'm talking about other things. Sometimes I'm doing random ass eating challenges now. Um, because I don't talk about these things all the time doesn't mean I don't think about them. When it comes to Rev, I think when I first met him, he was on a disconnect with any religious ideology or anything that came with it, and I think it was because of his upbringing and how he felt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't necessarily think he disagreed with it. He just disagreed with it for different reasons, and uh, I, I I actually battle with this with Brev all the time, like me mentally, not my conversations with him, because if I asked him something religious, he would give me a very honest answer, and he would try to do it the best he could with his knowledge of what he had. And I don't think he was doing it with any ill intent.
No,
Just like
no.
I think he associates with his upbringing. His upbringing was ill intent, and he can recognize.
We're all different. We all have different backgrounds, and I think my mom described it the best. We're all on the same ocean in a different rowboat.
Yeah,
We're all there. We're all on the same ocean in a different rowboat, and there's this pillar of light smack dab in the middle, and we're all looking at it from a different angle. Everybody's got their own path, and this is what bugs me about the libs is they want to pull everybody off their path, follow our path. Everybody's got to come to their knowledge their own way, and not everybody's going to accept it as easily. Some of us have to be knocked on the head before we'll see something.
and Sopranos fan. So for the comment that I have highlighted right now,
Oh
you're saying,
yeah, Zawi
you guys
Hawass
ever
is
seen the video with Zahai Hawass?
Zawi Hawass.
Yeah, sorry. Um, there's multiple videos about this interaction between Graham Hancock
Yeah.
and Zahi Hawass, and he didn't really let Graham Hancock speak with him,
No,
to say the
because
least.
Zawi Hawass is hiding shit.
And I think it has a lot to do with the conflict in the Middle East, and I don't think a lot of people want anyone doing research in that area.
I
Um,
think they found a lot of stuff that they don't want the world to know. I think Egypt is just trying to keep it on the down low, and
yeah,
Zawi Hawass is a control freak. He doesn't
and
want anybody to
and
find these things out.
the strangest thing that I actually point to for evidence is the fact that the people that live currently in Egypt have no genetic ties to the people that were considered Egyptian.
Originally there, exactly.
Yes.
That's
And
very true of a lot of countries now.
people don't have any understanding of that idea.
Well, they didn't build the pyramids.
I mean, that's where people don't actually have an
Somebody else
understanding of
did.
the idea. Well, the people that they say claim recognition for the pyramids are not the same people that actually found the pyramids halfway built and they were buried under sand because they had no idea that, oh, these structures are buried under sand. Even if the ruler acknowledged that in his research, they go, oh, okay, we found this in the sand. Oh, so this must be the colony that built it. I'm like, wait, what are we talking about here when it comes to
This
science?
is the
Like, this doesn't make any sense.
this is just another way they cover up our history. We're much older than they make us think we are.
Yeah, Mountain Timer. Yeah, we are still live, uh, hanging out, just talking about a lot of
A
different
lot of
ancient
stuff.
ideas. We're talking
Hello,
about
Mountain Timer.
higher densities and stuff like that. Definitely lots of hidden stuff in North Africa, Middle East, which I think North Africa and the Middle East, when you're talking about like the equator, is the central of humanity. I mean, I don't know necessarily if it's all of humanity. I do think it's possible that we had humanity before that, but I do think it was developed around the equator across the globe. Yeah, we're already 3 hours in. I knew me and you could talk about this stuff for hours. I
Yeah, I
apologize.
know.
This is my third live today. I apologize if I'm a little off base or if I'm interrupting too much.
That's okay.
I try to avoid it as much as possible, but I apologize if I've done that too much.
No, this is fun.
We usually have fun. Come on.
We always have fun. We're the cool kids.
Ooh, the giant stories. Okay.
Just would have been better if
Hear
Michael was
about
here.
Kindar, giant
Oh
stories,
yeah, the Kandar
special
giant.
forces, guys battling a red-headed giant in Afghanistan in the early 2000s. So I've heard about the red-headed giants for a
Yeah.
long period of time. And I think the future of covering up ancient history is going to happen in the Midwest of the United States. Because I think there's actually a lot of things in the Midwest of the United States that we've uncovered. And I think this has to do with continental drift and stuff like that, of what we're actually discovering when it comes to our way of placing things in time and the rocks surrounding them or anything like that. Because that's how we date things now, is basically by the half life of things that are surrounding it. So if it's pushed up in a certain layer of what would consider a timeline, um, it's easy to get those things wrong.
I think our whole history has been modified.
In what way?
I think we've been here a lot longer than they say we have. I think they've erased part of our history because we're finding all these old structures. People are
I think
starting to wake up
so I
and
agree with you. I agree with you on that sense because I think these ancient structures that we're looking at, it's quite ironic that all of them have gone through some kind of battle or obliviation where it comes to, oh, all of these sites were destroyed at some point recently.
you want to hear something that's even freakier? Not just this planet, but Mars. There's a guy on Art Alien TV, Art Alien TV on YouTube. And apparently, his profession in his real life is identifying things in rubble. So he's real good at it, and he'll highlight things for you. And he takes these pictures in Mars. And yesterday, I was watching it. He found a boat. Day before that, he found a hand of a statue. Day before that, he broadcast he found a head. And he references exactly what photographs these are coming from, and he shows you exactly how to bring the colors out. And it's really otherworldly. I mean, it's just very strange. So there's a history on our planet and there's a history on Mars that they're not telling us about. And I have a feeling the two are connected, but then that's just my speculation.
No, I don't think that's just your speculation. I think when people like Buzz Aldrin talk about the obelisks on Mars and they
Yeah,
compare them to the obelisks in ancient Egypt,
it's
and
not just obelisk. This guy is finding
I'm
the
just
one
saying
on
those
our
are
alien
subtle.
TV.
Those are subtle examples of a lot
Holy
of people
moly.
pointing to the culture that's going on because Andrew Basiago points to skulls
Mm-hmm.
and people are having to enter these skull-shaped beings and well, these skull-shaped structures in order to go to the underground. And me and you have talked about this with yeah, fuck it, I'll use the word adrenochrome,
Yeah.
and I think it correlates to the Disney movie Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
And I think it's very strange that people make the correlation where they tried to scare younger children into harvesting this type of
Fear.
energy.
Yeah.
And then I also see it in things like The Lion King,
Mm-hmm.
when they talk about these creatures walk out of a skull in this like skull and a graveyard type area.
Look at the pattern of the decorations on the animals in the Lion King. You'll see triangles and spirals, and the triangles are spiral triangles, and you'll see spiral circles. These are symbols of PEDO.
Okay.
So look at those symbols very carefully. It's a spiral triangle for little boys and a spiral circle for little girls. I think that's what the FBI lists them as. My son killed Disney. We don't have Disney in our household.
I wonder how long it's going to take people to realize these strange connections with people in media and their effect on
Yeah, in the
actors,
beginning,
actresses.
we wanted disclosure, and that's what Aaron's show is about, but he can't talk about it on there either.
Yeah.
What the Anons wanted was disclosure, and they explained to us in the beginning that disclosure would be 80-20, that there would be a huge amount, like 80%, that would never be made public because it would just be too much for them to handle. And then as it progressed, I think the following year or maybe 9 months after, I can't remember exactly when in the drops, the percentage changed to 60-40. There's going to be 40% that's going to be turned loose to the public, but there's going to be 60% that's going to be kept under wraps. And I have a feeling that whole PEDO and Chrome thing is going to be part of that 60%, because I have a feeling there's just some people out there that aren't going to be able to handle it.
Well, how much of the dichotomy do you think is based on the way that the media is portraying it to the public? How much do you think of it is
The media is trying to hide it.
well, how much do you think of it as deception when it comes to trying to persuade the public in a different way? And how much do you
Everything
think
you
of it
watch
as
on
people just
everything you
being
watch on
misguided?
television these days, everything you watch on television these days, especially syndicated television, is programmed to program you. They even broadcast at 440 hertz these days just to get you agitated. This is what the news does. They come at you kind of like Alex Jones-ish, and try to alert you to something. All the while they're broadcasting at 440 hertz, which agitates the human body.
So touch into that, since you're on here today, what do you think when it comes to Hertz and the generation of knowledge, whether it's because it's too rapid, because of the frequencies that we're getting the knowledge at? What do you think that impact is on society?
I think they've got our whole planet vibrating at an off frequency. I mean, look at what they put in our food and what they spray us with, and the Roundup and all this crap, and then the programming on top of it. It weakens your mind, your body. It makes you easier to control. I mean, it's no wonder people are having problems and health issues. People need to be aware of this, but people want convenience. So, I mean, how many kids nowadays know how to actually cook? And I don't mean open a box.
You immediately made me think of the fruit that they sell at the store that's already peeled, and people can
Yeah.
buy it in a wrapper that's already peeled.
Oh, hell, go grab it raw and wash it. If you want it peeled, do it yourself.
Right. People are so pampered
Please.
these days. It's another level of catering to society.
I go into the store and I look at the bananas, and then I go in my backyard and I pull one off the tree. It's like the taste is so different, and I let them ripen on the tree. I will not buy bananas when my trees are producing, because everything in the store is artificially ripened.
I mean, if you have a banana tree, you're already contributing to the system.
Well, I have fruit all over my yard. I've just finished out my gardens. I've pulled up some of them because they're finished. I'm staring at 3 butternut squash right now that I need to
My
cook.
question is to get more to the source, why don't you have a plantain tree?
Well, I've tried to grow them, but I don't have a split. I need a split for those.
Yeah.
I have Nika bananas. I brought these back from the islands.
So, do you know what the most radioactive things that humans consume are?
What? Don't tell me bananas.
Bananas and avocados.
Oh shit, and I eat them both.
Those are the two most radioactive things that humans can consume.
No doubt.
Isn't that
Well,
strange?
see, you can't win either way you go. I try to go
And and
natural,
and,
and this is
and
what
I
happens.
people look at me when I'm keto because I go, oh, okay. By nature, things that are red in color actually have more sugar in them because we've manufactured them this way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's fruit or vegetables, it doesn't really matter. A green pepper compared to a red pepper, they have different sugar amounts.
Yeah. Well,
And it's
these
just
are wild
done by
bananas.
nature.
These are Nika bananas. They're the little teeny tiny ones. You can eat them in 2 bites.
I don't speak enough Spanish to answer your question, Juan. I apologize. I need to touch up my Spanish before I share all your your context here. But I apologize if I'm skipping over you. I don't think we've met before, but thank you, Juan, for being in here. Um, yeah, I'm not going to say much more on that. The deep state seems to promote the eating of bugs to help climate change, although many claim that bugs contain something called chitins,
Chittens, yeah, they do.
which can cause cancer in humans.
Yep, they can cause all kinds of problems in humans with your immune system. I'm telling you, it's a death cult. They want us to die. They want us sick and dead.
Well, and do you think it's a death cult or do you think it's a population control?
Both. Death cults are into population
Because
control. That's how they get their
I don't
rocks
think they
off.
want all of the population to die.
No, they want just enough to serve them, just
Exactly,
enough to
and that's where
control.
I fall. That's where I fall on that middle line. Like I do think there's a population of people that don't want as much growth as we have,
Right.
but I do also think that you need a certain amount of people to actually influence your system.
Hmm. And our birth rate is already under limit.
Yeah. Was it our current president that? No, I don't think it was our current president, but somebody under his administration that referenced um, China's male only birth idea
Yeah,
as
look what
a
it's done.
possible suggestion.
China's paying the price of that one right now. There's too
Yeah.
many men. There's some men that just go their whole life without a female companion.
Well, I'll be the first one to say this. I'm not like diehard to men or anything like that. I was the first one to tell you that I don't think men are as good as women. I think women are way better than men. But people wouldn't consider me a feminist because of the way that I feel about
Well, I don't think it was the
current
choice
society.
of the Chinese government between man or woman. It was just a one-child policy. So what they did was they killed off if their firstborn was a girl, they'd kill it off because they didn't want a girl, they wanted a boy. They
Yeah,
were still rural. That was when Mao Zedong was in
but
power.
that has a huge reaction to society and how men and women are produced
It
as
does. I
a
think
total.
it's, I could be wrong, but I think it's 5 men to every woman in China.
Wow.
But there's two very good people on YouTube that if you want to know about China, they lived there. I think Wilson lived there for I think 12 years or 15 years, and Matt lived there for 10. And they came back to the States. They have Chinese wives too, but they experienced China firsthand and the CCP and all the stuff that goes on over there because when they went to China, it was still open, and then Xi started locking things down. So now they go on YouTube. It's Serpent ZA. and Laowhy 86, Laowhy. And they also have one called ADV China, where they show all their tours that they did over the years in China and show you the people that are over there. And they're very active in the cause for the Uyghurs. So if you want some real news on China, go check them out. They have lives on YouTube all the time, and they've got film, and the Chinese government is going ape shit trying to shut them down. And the Wu Maos, which is like a Chinese troll, they hit the chats are amazing. They're funny because the Wu Maos come in and try to, shut everybody up, and then all of us Americans with our freedom of speech go back at them.
Well, and I think there's irony just in that. With
Yeah.
we're talking about people like the Young Turks and these ulterior ideas that may be funded by George Soros, but there's these people that have these ideas that the Uyghurs are protected in some kind of way.
No,
And
they're
it's like
sending them
it's
to
so ironic
concentration.
that you don't point out the things that are actually affecting your community that you're standing up for, supposedly.
No, they even have Uyghurs that come on their show that have escaped China, and they have family still back in China that they've lost touch with or can't find. Somebody over there smuggled out a police state database that they got their hands on, and the majority of the pictures of these people look white or mixed. They're Uyghurs. There's some that are blonde. They're at the time that Russia and China put their border in so long ago, there were some Russians that were trapped inside China. So you've got white Chinese, Caucasian Chinese, and these are all the people that are showing up in the camps.
Well, and this is the same thing that happened in the Middle East, and
Yep.
people don't recognize it. They actually took a picture of it on Life magazine, but nobody likes to actually talk about on a spectrum sense when it comes to identifying humans.
Which one was that?
There was this dark-haired, blue-eyed girl that
Oh, that
was
was the Afghani girl. Yes, that was
yes,
Time
that
magazine.
people like to show the picture of, but they don't like to identify as trying to understand it. And people don't understand that there could have been white Middle Easterns as well.
Oh yeah. Well,
It isn't necessarily attached with
everybody has a
Americanism or
stereotype.
even Europeanism.
No, everybody has a stereotype, and my ex-husband and my stepdad are both Lebanese, and I will tell you there are green-eyed, blonde-haired people over there that are native.
Yeah.
Just
And
like
they
in
didn't
Spain.
all come from Sweden.
Right. No, these are Lebanese people. Their genetics are Lebanese. They are Lebanese, but they are blonde and green-eyed or blue-eyed.
Well, I hate to do this to you, Mudrabbit. I'm gonna give
Nope,
us
that's
like
fine. It's late.
three. I'm gonna give us like 3 more minutes before we wrap up this interview. I was gonna open up to everybody else, but we got 7 people watching still, all across, gosh, Facebook, YouTube. We got people on all the different channels. We got one person on my new channel. We got 3 people on my old channel, and we got one person on Facebook, and then we got 2 people on Twitch right now.
Hit that like button.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. At least, yeah, you don't have to hit the like button. You don't have to follow me. If you don't like what we're talking about, have a warm blast of fuck off, and you don't if you don't want to.
We're sorry if we
make
don't
anybody
agree.
watch this.
Yes, and I don't require anyone to take anything I say as absolute truth. I encourage you to pick up a book or open a website and study it.
And that's why we're talking about all these things as our opinions.
Yeah,
like,
it's out there.
We're not telling people this is the truth. We talked about this offline. The people that assume this as the truth are doing it wrong.
Yeah. I'm just telling you what I learned, and the information is out there. Cassiopeia.com has a lot of it. You can go look for yourself.
Sopranos fan says Iran means land of Aryans.
Yeah, I think so. Iran
And
is the word
Chase
for
Chase
Aryan.
gave us a thumbs up as well. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chase, for still being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're glad you got to catch it. That was like the first two things that Mudrabbit said to me. But like before we go live, we want to make sure Andre's here and we want to make sure Chase is here. So I sent everybody an email that I wanted to get a hold of for this, and they all showed up tonight. So I appreciate.
Great. Thanks, guys.
But yeah, I hope I get to talk to you soon. I also hope Aaron gets to get everything figured out with what he's got going on, so he can get you on soon. And
Yeah, come see us over on Truth Quest.
I'd be happy to share anything that we do with Aaron. He's got full access to anything I do.
No, I
Aaron,
think it's better
assume
over
that I
here
do
because
lives.
this is the place I first discussed it, and I had more time over here to talk about it. So that was even better.
Oh yeah, you always have the floor here, Mudrabbit. You are never going to be you're never going to be overshadowed by anybody for the simple fact that you've been here with me from the beginning. You're about as loyal to
Oh,
me as uh, Michael Pena, and I've always said like those are my two people to go to is Michael Pena
yeah, I
or
love Michael.
Mudrabbit when I actually want to know something that I actually want to dig into a little bit. I'll hear your guys' opinion on it. I'll dig into it a little bit more, and then I'll talk to you guys about it.
Yeah, you want to be confused, get us on at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, good night.
Soprano
Much
Finn
love to
said,
everybody.
"Great combo, Muddy Waters show."
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
works.
fun.
I like that.
Oh, we couldn't do a regular show because we'd get burnt out of each other. I've started to learn that about shows. I can't do a regular show with anybody because eventually the political topics or anything else eventually burn out
Oh God, that would
after a
be
period of time.
overload. That would just be overload.
Exactly. Too much requirements.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thank you so much for coming on, Mudrabbit. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm signing off. Good night.
All right. You have a good night. Thank you so much for Mudrabbit coming on. I thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna end it here. Possibly might do another live stream tonight. We'll see. Or this morning, I guess. It's like 2:35 my time. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I hope I wasn't interrupting Mudrabbit too much. I have a tendency of doing that when I get a little later into the interviews. This is my third live today. I think I'm about 4 hours in, so I apologize if I did too much interrupting. I apologize if I didn't get to anybody's comments. I hope everybody's doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Mother, is still here. I appreciate it.